Iris was getting ready for work, preparing to clean an apartment. She didn't know the person who lived there would be home, let alone that he'd ask her to join him and his old school friends for a get-together. Little did Iris know, there was more to this invitation than just a friendly gathering. It turned out to be full of unexpected surprises and secrets. Iris was a determined young woman who found a special way to help her family. She worked hard cleaning houses, mostly getting new clients from happy customers who told their friends about her. Iris had faced challenges early on, like becoming a mom when she was young, which caused problems with her parents. But with her daughter Camille by her side, Iris felt inspired to make things better. When Camille was just 6 months old, Iris decided to take charge of her life. Since it was tough to find a regular job while taking care of her daughter, Iris started cleaning houses instead. She quickly got more clients because she did great work and was always dedicated. The best part was that cleaning gave Iris the flexibility to take care of Camille while still earning a living and making a good life for them both. Another day started, and Iris got ready for another round of tough work. Today, she was set to clean an apartment. It was her first time working there. Usually, her clients trusted her so much they'd let her in or leave the key for her. They were all super busy, often busy with work all day. So Iris hardly ever got to meet her clients face to face. But because they trusted her so much, she could work quietly, keeping their places clean and tidy while they stayed busy with their schedules. Iris started her day by checking on her adorable 4-year-old daughter, Camille, before getting ready for work. The plan was to take Camille to school and then head to the apartment for her cleaning job. But there was a problem. Camille wasn't feeling well. She had a fever and was coughing now and then. Luckily, Iris had medicine ready for situations like this. It was obvious that Camille wouldn't be able to go to school that day. But Iris, being both a loving mom and a dedicated worker, couldn't ignore her duties for the day. She took special care of Camille, giving her the medicine she needed to feel better. Then, faced with a tough choice, Iris made a decision. In this unusual situation, she chose to bring Camille with her to work. It was something she hadn't done before, but under the circumstances, it was the only way to make sure she fulfilled her promise to her client. When Iris reached the apartment, she realized the key wasn't where it was supposed to be, so she rang the doorbell instead. Much to her surprise, a friendly young man answered the door. "You must be Iris," he said with a smile. "I'm Nathan. I had to work from home today, but go ahead with the cleaning as planned." "Good morning, Mr. Nathan. I didn't think you'd be home. I hope it's okay, but I had to bring my daughter with me. I promise she won't be a bother," Iris apologized, feeling a bit awkward. Nathan, with a friendly smile, responded, "Oh, please just call me Nathan, and don't worry about your daughter. Feel free to put on a movie for her on the TV if you'd like." Nathan's kindness and understanding really impressed Iris. She made sure to work quietly and carefully that morning, knowing Nathan was busy with his own tasks. As lunchtime approached and Iris was still cleaning, Nathan emerged from his room. "Iris, I'm about to have lunch. Would you and your daughter like to join me?" he offered. Iris was surprised by the kindness Nathan showed her, but she didn't want to overstay her welcome. After all, he had already been so understanding about her daughter being there. "Thank you very much, Nathan," she said gratefully, "but I'm almost finished, and then I need to get home so my daughter can rest." Nathan insisted, smiling. "I've already told you, no need for Mr. I'm not that old." "Okay then. I hope your daughter feels better soon. Thanks for your hard work, and here's your payment." Meeting Nathan had a big impact on Iris. She was used to clients who kept their distance, so Nathan treating her with kindness and equality really touched her. This meant a lot, especially considering the challenges she had faced in life. Before Iris met Nathan, she had crossed paths with Camille's father, Victor, at a party. She was young and out to have a good time with her friends. Victor, a bit older and charming, caught Iris's eye. They spent some time together, but Victor never wanted anything serious. While Iris was falling for him, Victor kept his distance and avoided getting involved with her family. He never introduced Iris to his family, and when he learned about the pregnancy, he disappeared without a word. With little information about him, Iris found herself alone, facing the unexpected pregnancy and an uncertain future. Despite initial conflict with her parents about Camille's pregnancy, Iris had their support throughout. When Camille was born, family and friends came together, providing clothes and diapers for the baby. This show of solidarity helped Iris through a tough time with the support of her family and friends. She gradually found her strength and worked towards a better future for herself and her daughter. Although she faced challenges, Iris had to set aside her dream of becoming a nurse. Motherhood and supporting her daughter left her with no time or resources to pursue her studies. It had been a week since Iris last cleaned Nathan's apartment, the friendly customer who had pleasantly surprised her with his kindness. Then she got a message from him asking for another cleaning the next day. This time the keys were right where they were supposed to be, which oddly left Iris feeling a bit disappointed. Maybe, deep down, she hoped to see that young man again. As Iris entered the apartment, she quickly noticed a surprise waiting for her. A neatly wrapped gift sat on the table, accompanied by a note that read, "Iris, this is for your daughter. I hope she enjoys it." After completing the cleaning, Iris headed to pick up her daughter from school, clutching the gift tightly. When Camille received it, her eyes lit up with joy, warming Iris's heart. Nathan's simple gesture of kindness made Iris think about how different things could have been if Camille had a loving father like him, instead of Victor's absence. The next week, Iris went to clean Nathan's apartment once more, and to her surprise, he was home this time. He greeted her with a warm smile as he opened the door. "Hey, Iris, I'm working from home today, so no worries about interrupting," he said. Iris smiled back. "Oh, you're not bothering at all. This is your place after all." Throughout the day, as Iris cleaned, she and Nathan chatted like old friends. They talked about everyday things, shared stories and experiences, creating a genuine sense of friendship. When Iris finished, she said goodbye, thanking Nathan once again for the gift he had given to her daughter. Over the next few weeks, Iris continued her weekly cleaning visits to Nathan's home. Sometimes he was there, other times he wasn't. Nathan, being a bit older and a lawyer, would occasionally talk about his work cases, while Iris shared bits of her own life story. One day, as she worked, Nathan mentioned he had a meeting planned with his old high school buddies. He confessed he wasn't really looking forward to it, but felt obligated to go since it had been a while since they last met. What caught Iris off guard was what he said next. "In high school, I used to joke about never settling down or having kids. I was the designated bachelor of the group," Nathan explained, reminiscing. "Wouldn't it be a laugh if I showed up there married?" Suddenly struck by an idea, Nathan turned to Iris. "Hey, Iris, would you be up for going with me to this meetup, pretending to be my wife?" Though the request caught her off guard, Iris saw the potential for some fun. With Nathan arranging a babysitter for Camille, they both dressed up and headed to the gathering. Iris couldn't remember the last time she had dolled up and put on so much makeup. Having a break from her usual routine felt like a breath of fresh air. When they arrived at the meetup spot, Iris felt Nathan's hand in hers, and he said with a playful grin, "If we're going to play the part, we might as well do it right." It was a lighthearted moment that made her smile as they walked in holding hands. Nathan's friends were genuinely surprised when he introduced Iris as his wife. They teased her, jokingly asking how she managed to tie down the confirmed bachelor. The evening had a relaxed and enjoyable vibe, and everyone seemed to be having a great time. As the night wore on, it became harder to tell if Iris and Nathan were just putting on an act or if there was something more between them. They continued to hold hands, sharing meaningful glances and enjoying lively conversations with Nathan's friends. The boundary between play acting and reality seemed to blur, fostering a genuine sense of closeness between them. The relaxed atmosphere took a sudden turn when Nathan's late friend arrived. Iris's expression turned pale instantly. She gripped Nathan's arm, her voice filled with concern. "Remember when I told you about Camille's father disappearing?" "That's him," she whispered urgently. Nathan's eyes widened as he followed her gaze. "But that's my old friend Victor," he exclaimed. "He's the one who left you?" Iris asked, disbelief in her voice. Nathan didn't hesitate to leave, and Iris readily agreed. As they made their way out, they ran into Victor. Seeing Nathan with Iris, Victor recognized her despite the years that had passed. In a disrespectful tone, he sneered, "Hey, Nathan. What's with you and this gold digger? Looks like she finally found someone to scam." Knowing Iris and her character, Nathan firmly defended her. "Victor, you'd have no right to insult Iris. She's hardworking and honest. Now, if you'll excuse us, we're leaving." With that, he walked away with Iris, leaving behind Victor's hurtful words. Nathan's protective stance strengthened their bond, showing his loyalty to Iris as a friend. Once they were in the car, emotions were more in check. Iris thanked Nathan for standing by her side during that tough moment. Victor has shown his true colors as a complete scoundrel who needs to face up to his responsibilities. I can assist you in making him acknowledge Camille as his daughter, Nathan offered. But Iris's response caught him off guard. I've often wondered what it would be like if Victor had stayed with me and been a father to Camille. But today, I realize I don't want that man in my life, let alone in my daughter's life. I've been working hard and managing to take care of her without his help. She doesn't need a father who rejected her. Nathan gazed at Iris with admiration and asked, "And what about me, Iris? Do you want me in your life?" "Yes, Nathan. I want you to be a part of my life," Iris replied, her smile radiant. Their lips met in a sweet, passionate kiss, marking the start of a new chapter for them. Their bond deepened as their relationship blossomed, and Nathan felt he had found someone to build a future with. Camille, Iris's daughter, grew to love him too, and their family bond grew stronger. Eventually, Iris and Nathan decided to marry, a moment of joy and fulfillment. It also meant Iris could pursue her dream of becoming a nurse. The tale of Iris, Nathan, and Camille carries a poignant message about leaving the past, embodied by Victor, behind. At times, those who should stand beside us fail to meet their obligations, causing hurt and disillusionment. Yet, it's crucial to understand that we aren't defined by the actions of those who've wronged us. Iris refused to let Victor's absence shape her and her daughter's future. Instead, she focused on crafting a nurturing and fulfilling life for Camille, with Nathan's unwavering support. If you enjoyed the story, please show your appreciation by liking and subscribing to the channel. Share your feedback by commenting with a number from 1 to 5 to indicate your level of satisfaction. Also, check out the video currently displayed on your screen. Until next time.
I never imagined my mother-in-law's high school yearbook would upend my world. But there I was, staring at a faded black and white photo of two teenage girls, one unmistakably my mother, Helen, and the other, Beatrice, my husband's mother. They were classmates and, from the look of it, bitter rivals. "Julia, you've been up here for ages. What are you doing?" Ethan's voice drifted up from downstairs. I snapped the yearbook shut, my heart racing. "Just a minute," I called back, trying to keep my voice steady. How could I tell my husband that our mothers shared a past neither of them had ever mentioned? As I descended the stairs of our cozy Victorian, Ethan's concerned face came into view. "Everything okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." I forced a smile. "Not a ghost exactly, but I think I've stumbled onto a family secret." Ethan's brow furrowed. "What do you mean?" Before I could answer, the doorbell rang. Ethan moved to answer it, and I felt my stomach drop as I heard Beatrice's voice. "Darling, I was in the neighborhood and thought I'd pop by." She swept into the living room, her designer perfume filling the air. Her eyes landed on me, and her smile tightened almost imperceptibly. "Julia, dear, how quaint you look today." I glanced down at my paint-splattered jeans and oversized sweater, suddenly feeling underdressed in my own home. "Beatrice, what a surprise. We were just about to have lunch. Would you like to join us?" "Oh, I wouldn't dream of imposing," she said, even as she settled herself onto our antique sofa. "I just wanted to remind Ethan about the country club gala next weekend. You'll both be attending, of course?" Ethan shot me an apologetic look. "Actually, Mom, we have plans that weekend. Julia's parents are celebrating their anniversary." Beatrice's lips pursed. "I see. Well, I suppose family obligations must come first, even if they're not quite the same caliber of event." I felt my cheeks flush with anger. "My parents' anniversary is very important to us, Beatrice. I'm sure you can understand that." "Of course, dear," she said, her tone dripping with condescension. "I'm sure it will be charming. Now, Ethan, about the new exhibit at your gallery." As Beatrice monopolized the conversation, my mind raced back to the yearbook upstairs. I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to her disdain for me and my family than simple snobbery. What had happened between her and my mother all those years ago? The afternoon dragged on, with Beatrice making thinly veiled comments about my background and my work at the local art museum. By the time she finally left, I felt drained and on edge. Ethan closed the door behind her with a sigh. "I'm sorry about that, Jules. You know how she can be." I took a deep breath. Ethan, there's something I need to show you. I led him upstairs and pulled out the yearbook. As I opened it to the page with our mother's photos, Ethan's eyes widened in disbelief. Is that? I nodded. Your mom and mine. They went to school together. Ethan ran a hand through his hair. But why wouldn't they have told us? I don't know, I said, a knot forming in my stomach. But I think it's time we found out. Just then, my phone buzzed with a text from my mother. Sweetie, can you come over? There's something important we need to discuss. I showed Ethan the message, and we shared a look of apprehension. Whatever was going on, it was clear that the past was about to collide with the present in ways we couldn't have imagined. The drive to my parents' house was tense, with Ethan and I lost in our own thoughts. As we pulled up to the familiar yellow bungalow, I noticed Mom pacing on the porch. Julia, honey, she called, wringing her hands. I'm so glad you're here. We need to talk. I exchanged a glance with Ethan before following Mom inside. Dad was sitting in his armchair looking worried. What's going on? I asked, my stomach churning. Mom took a deep breath. We've been invited to a reunion party at the Holbrook estate next weekend. Beatrice's home. I felt the blood drain from my face. Mom, I found your old yearbook. You and Beatrice went to school together, didn't you? The silence that followed was deafening. Finally, Dad spoke up. Helen, it's time to tell her the truth. Mom's eyes filled with tears. I'm so sorry, sweetie. We should have told you long ago. Beatrice and I, we have a history. A bad one. Before she could continue, the doorbell rang. Dad went to answer it, and I heard a familiar, grating voice. Well, isn't this cozy? Beatrice swept into the living room, her eyes narrowing as she took in the scene. A little family gathering? How quaint. Ethan stood up, his face flushed. Mom, what are you doing here? Beatrice ignored him, focusing on my mother instead. Hello, Helen. It's been a long time. The tension in the room was palpable. Mom straightened her spine, meeting Beatrice's gaze. Not long enough, apparently. Beatrice's laugh was cold. Oh, come now. Surely you're not still holding a grudge after all these years? Water under the bridge, isn't it? What grudge? I demanded, looking between the two women. What happened between you two? Beatrice turned to me, her smile sharp. Oh, didn't your mother tell you? She stole the love of my life right out from under me, and now history seems to be repeating itself. I felt like I'd been slapped. What are you talking about? Julia, Ethan said, his voice strained. Maybe we should go. No, I said firmly. I want to hear this. Beatrice's eyes glittered with malice. Your mother was always so good at playing the innocent, but she knew exactly what she was doing when she seduced Thomas away from me. That's not true, Mom burst out. Thomas chose me, Beatrice. He never loved you. Lies, Beatrice hissed. And now your daughter has ensnared my son here just like you did. I felt my anger rising. I didn't ensnare anyone. Ethan and I love each other. Beatrice turned her venomous gaze on me. Love? What would you know about love? Coming from this. She gestured dismissively at my parents' modest home. Ethan stepped between us. That's enough, Mom. We're leaving. As he ushered me towards the door, Beatrice called out, Don't forget about the reunion, Helen. I'll be expecting you all there. It's time we settled this once and for all. The drive home was silent, the weight of Beatrice's words hanging heavy between us. As we pulled into our driveway, I finally spoke. Ethan, I'm so sorry. I had no idea. He cut me off with a gentle kiss. This isn't your fault, Jules, or your mom's. My mother, she's always been difficult, but I've never seen her like this. I leaned my head against his shoulder. What are we going to do? Ethan sighed. I don't know, but we'll figure it out together. As we walked into our house, my phone buzzed with a text from Mom. I'm sorry for everything. Please let me explain. Dinner tomorrow? I showed Ethan the message and he nodded. We need answers. All of us. I typed a quick reply. We'll be there. It's time for the whole truth. As I hit send, I couldn't shake the feeling that our lives were about to change dramatically. Whatever happened between our mothers in the past, it was clear that Beatrice wasn't going to let it go. And now, Ethan and I were caught in the crossfire of a decades-old feud. I looked at Ethan, seeing the worry in his eyes. No matter what happens, I said, squeezing his hand, we're in this together. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Together, he agreed. But as we settled in for the night, I couldn't help but wonder if our love would be strong enough to withstand the storm that was coming. The next evening, Ethan and I arrived at my parents' house, the air thick with anticipation. Mom greeted us with a strained smile, ushering us into the living room where Dad sat, his face etched with worry. "It's time you knew everything," Mom began, her voice barely above a whisper. "Beatrice, Thomas, and I were inseparable in high school, but Beatrice, she always wanted more." As Mom recounted the tale of their tumultuous past, I felt my heart sink. Thomas, the boy they both loved, had chosen my mother. Beatrice never forgave her. "She swore she'd make me pay," Mom said, her eyes glistening. "And now she's using you two to do it." Ethan's jaw clenched. "This is insane. My mother can't possibly still be holding on to this grudge after all these years." Dad leaned forward, his expression grave. "I'm afraid it's worse than that. We've heard rumors that Beatrice is trying to sabotage Julia's career at the gallery." My blood ran cold. "What? How?" Before anyone could answer, Ethan's phone buzzed. His face paled as he read the message. "It's my father. He says Mom is on her way here. Now." Panic gripped me as we heard the screech of tires outside. Beatrice burst through the door, her eyes wild with fury. "How dare you poison my son against me?" she shrieked, pointing an accusing finger at my mother. Ethan stepped between them. "Mom, stop this. You're embarrassing yourself." Beatrice's laugh was bitter. "Embarrassing myself? Your precious Julia is the spitting image of her conniving mother. Can't you see she's manipulating you, just like Helen did to Thomas?" I felt my temper flare. "That's enough. I love Ethan, and he loves me. This has nothing to do with you or your ancient grudge." Beatrice's eyes narrowed. "Oh, but it does. You think you've won, just like your mother did, but I won't let history repeat itself." She turned to Ethan, her voice suddenly soft. "Darling, please, you can't marry her. She'll ruin you, just like her mother ruined Thomas." The room fell silent. I turned to Ethan, my heart pounding. "Mary?" Ethan's face flushed as he reached into his pocket, pulling out a small velvet box. "This isn't how I planned to do this, but—" He dropped to one knee, opening the box to reveal a stunning diamond ring. "Julia, will you marry me?" Tears sprang to my eyes as I nodded, too overwhelmed to speak. Ethan slipped the ring onto my finger, and we embraced, lost in our own world for a moment. Beatrice's enraged scream shattered our bubble of happiness. "No, I forbid this." Ethan stood, his arm protectively around me. "You can't forbid anything, Mom. I love Julia, and we're getting married. If you can't accept that, then you don't have to be part of our lives." Beatrice's face contorted with rage. "You'll regret this, both of you. I'll make sure of it." With that, she stormed out, slamming the door behind her. In the stunned silence that followed, my mother approached us, tears in her eyes. "I'm so sorry. This is all my fault." I hugged her tightly. "No, Mom, this is Beatrice's doing, not yours." Ethan nodded, his expression determined. "We won't let her come between us, any of us." As we stood there, our families united in the face of Beatrice's threat, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of our troubles. The ring on my finger, though beautiful, now felt like a target. "What do we do now?" I asked, looking at Ethan. His grip on my hand tightened. "We fight. Together." As night fell, we made plans to confront Beatrice's schemes head-on. But deep down, I knew that our battle was far from over. Beatrice's vendetta had spanned decades. She wouldn't give up easily, and as I caught my reflection in the window, seeing my mother's features mirrored in my own, I realized that for Beatrice this wasn't just about the past. It was about destroying the future she felt she'd been denied. The morning after Ethan's proposal should have been filled with joy, but instead I woke to a frantic call from my father. "Julia, it's gone. Everything's gone," he choked out. My heart raced as I rushed to dress. "Dad, what are you talking about?" "The bookshop. We're bankrupt." I felt the floor drop out from under me. The family bookshop had been a cornerstone of our community for decades. How could this happen? Ethan drove us to the shop, his hand steady on mine. As we pulled up, I saw my parents standing outside, looking shell-shocked. The windows were dark, a stark closed sign hanging on the door. "I don't understand," I said, hugging my father tightly. "How did this happen so suddenly?" Mom's voice was bitter. "It wasn't sudden. Someone's been working against us for months, canceling orders, spreading rumors about our financial stability." A chill ran down my spine. "You don't think." "Beatrice," Ethan finished, his jaw clenched. Before we could discuss further, my phone rang. It was the gallery director asking me to come in immediately. With a heavy heart, I left my parents, promising to return soon. At the gallery, I was met with chaos. Our star artist had pulled out of the upcoming show, citing concerns about the gallery's reputation. As I struggled to salvage the situation, a familiar voice cut through the noise. "Such a shame," Beatrice purred, sauntering into my office. "It seems misfortune follows your family wherever you go." I straightened, meeting her gaze. "What do you want, Beatrice?" Her smile was razor sharp. "To offer you a way out, of course. Break off this farce of an engagement with my son, and I'll make all of this." She waved her hand dismissively. "Go away." "You're behind this," I realized, fury building in my chest. "The bookshop, the gallery." Beatrice shrugged elegantly. "I merely pointed out some unfortunate truths to the right people. Your father's outdated business model, your questionable curatorial choices." I felt my hands shake with rage. "You won't get away with this." "Oh, but I already have," she said, leaning in close. "Face it, Julia. You're not good enough for my son or this world. Do the right thing and walk away before you drag Ethan down with you." As she turned to leave, she paused at the door. "Oh, and Julia, I'd hate for anything to happen to your mother's reputation. It would be a shame if certain youthful indiscretions came to light." The threat hung in the air as she swept out, leaving me reeling. I sank into my chair, my mind racing. How could I fight against someone with so much power and so little conscience? My phone buzzed with a text from Ethan. "Everything okay? You've been gone for hours." I stared at the screen, Beatrice's words echoing in my head. Was she right? Was I dragging Ethan into a world of problems he didn't deserve? With shaking hands, I typed out a response. "We need to talk. It's important." As I hit send, I felt the weight of my decision crushing me. I loved Ethan more than anything, but could our love withstand the storm Beatrice was unleashing? And more importantly, did I have the right to ask him to weather it with me? I looked down at the engagement ring on my finger, its sparkle now seeming to mock me. In that moment, I knew I had to make a choice: fight for our love and risk everything, or give in to Beatrice's demands and lose the future I dreamed of. As I left the gallery, the sun setting on what felt like the longest day of my life, I steeled myself for the conversation ahead. Whatever I decided, I knew nothing would ever be the same again. I paced our living room, waiting for Ethan to return from work. My mind raced with the day's events: the bookshop's bankruptcy, Beatrice's threats, and the looming decision I had to make. When Ethan finally walked in, his face etched with concern, I felt my resolve waver. "Jules, what's going on?" he asked, pulling me into a tight embrace. I took a deep breath. "Ethan, I think we need to postpone the wedding." His body stiffened. "Why?" As I recounted Beatrice's visit to the gallery and her ultimatum, Ethan's expression darkened. "We can't let her win, Julia. We can't let her dictate our lives." "But what about the bookshop? My parents have lost everything," I said, tears welling up. Ethan's eyes lit up suddenly. "Maybe not. Your dad called me earlier. He didn't want to get your hopes up, but he has a plan." Hope flickered in my chest as Ethan explained. Dad had been working on a new business model, a community-centered bookshop and cafe with space for local authors and artists. The bankruptcy, while devastating, could be a fresh start. "He's been keeping it quiet," Ethan said, worried that Beatrice might try to sabotage it if she found out. I felt a surge of pride for my father's resilience. "But how will he fund it?" Ethan squeezed my hand. "That's where we come in. I've been saving for a down payment on a house, but this is more important. We can invest in your dad's new venture." I was stunned by his generosity. "Ethan, I can't ask you to do that." "You're not asking, I'm offering," he said firmly. "We're a team, remember?" As we discussed the possibilities, a new determination filled me. We couldn't let Beatrice win, but how could we stop her vendetta once and for all? "We need to get to the root of this," I said. "The feud between our mothers has gone on long enough." Ethan nodded thoughtfully. "What if we brought them together, forced them to confront the past?" An idea began to form. "The jazz fete next month. We could invite them both, create an opportunity for them to talk." "It's risky," Ethan warned. "It could backfire spectacularly." "But if it works," I countered, "we might finally have peace." As we brainstormed our plan, my phone buzzed with a text from Mom. "Your father told me about his new idea. Are you sure about this investment?" I looked at Ethan, seeing the love and support in his eyes. "We're sure," I replied. Just then, Ethan's phone rang. His face paled as he answered. "Dad? What's wrong?" I watched as Ethan listened, his expression growing more troubled by the second. When he hung up, he looked shell-shocked. "My father's leaving my mother?" he said quietly. "He says he can't take her behavior anymore. He asked if he could stay with us for a while." The implications hit me like a tidal wave. Beatrice, alone and angry, would be more dangerous than ever. And now we'd be housing her estranged husband. "What do we do?" I asked, feeling overwhelmed. Ethan took a deep breath. "We stick to the plan. We bring our mothers together at the jazz fete. But now we have even more reason to make it work." I nodded, a mix of fear and determination coursing through me. It's all or nothing now. As we settled in for the night, the weight of our decisions pressed down on us. We were risking everything, our families, our futures, our love, on this gamble. But as I looked at Ethan, I knew we had no choice. We had to fight for our happily ever after, no matter the cost. Tomorrow, we'd start preparing for the jazz fete. It would be our battleground, the place where years of resentment and manipulation would finally come to a head. And one way or another, our lives would never be the same again. The night of the jazz fete arrived, and my nerves were frayed to the breaking point. Ethan and I had spent weeks planning this moment, hoping to finally bring our mothers face to face and end this decades-long feud. As we entered the elegantly decorated pavilion, the smooth sounds of jazz filled the air. I scanned the crowd, my heart racing when I spotted my mother, Helen, chatting with some old friends near the bar. "There's my mom," I whispered to Ethan. "Do you see Beatrice?" He shook his head, his brow furrowed. "Not yet, but she'll be here. She never misses a chance to show off." We made our way to Helen, who greeted us with a tight smile. "I still think this is a bad idea," she murmured. "Mom, please," I pleaded. "Just give it a chance." Before she could respond, a hush fell over the crowd. Beatrice had arrived, resplendent in a shimmering gown that probably cost more than my entire wardrobe. Her eyes narrowed as she spotted us, and she made a beeline for our group. Well, she drawled, her voice dripping with disdain. "What a quaint little gathering." Helen stiffened beside me. "Beatrice, you're looking, well." The tension was palpable as the two women faced each other for the first time in years. I held my breath, praying our plan would work. Suddenly, a booming voice cut through the awkward silence. "Helen, is that you?" We all turned to see Charles Worthington, a renowned philanthropist, approaching with a broad smile. "I haven't seen you since the last charity gala. Your work with the literacy program has been outstanding." Beatrice's jaw dropped as Charles continued to sing my mother's praises. "You know, Beatrice," he said, turning to her, "you really should get involved with Helen's initiatives. She's become quite the pillar of our community." I couldn't help but feel a surge of pride as I watched Beatrice struggle to maintain her composure. This was exactly what we'd hoped for. A chance for my mother to shine, to show Beatrice that she wasn't the small-town nobody she'd always believed her to be. But just as I thought we might be making progress, Beatrice's eyes flashed with fury. "Oh, Charles," she said, her voice sickly sweet, "you're so kind to humor Helen's little projects, but surely you know about her sordid past?" My mother paled. "Beatrice, don't." "Did you know," Beatrice continued, raising her voice so others could hear, "that our dear Helen once—" "That's enough," Ethan's voice rang out, startling us all. "Mother, this ends now. Your vendetta against Helen, your attempts to sabotage Julia's career and her family's business, it stops here." Beatrice's face contorted with rage. "How dare you speak to me like that? I am your mother." "And Julia is my fiancée," Ethan shot back. "The woman I love. If you can't accept that, then you're the one who'll be left behind." The crowd around us had grown silent, all eyes on our family drama unfolding. I felt a mixture of pride and terror as Ethan stood up to his mother for the first time. Beatrice's gaze swept over all of us, landing finally on me. "You," she hissed. "You've turned my own son against me, just like your mother stole Thomas all those years ago." "No one stole anyone," Helen said quietly. "It's time to let go of the past, Beatrice." For a moment, I thought I saw a flicker of something, regret, pain in Beatrice's eyes, but it was quickly replaced by cold fury. "This isn't over," she spat, turning on her heel and storming out of the pavilion. As the crowd began to murmur and disperse, I felt my knees go weak. Ethan caught me, holding me close. "It's okay," he whispered. "We did it. We stood up to her." But as I looked at the faces around us, my shaken mother, the confused onlookers, and Ethan's determined expression, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was far from over. In fact, I feared we had just ignited a powder keg that threatened to explode and destroy everything we held dear. The aftermath of the jazz fete was like the calm before a storm. For days, an eerie quiet settled over our lives, but I knew Beatrice was plotting her revenge. I wasn't prepared for how swiftly and viciously it would come. It started with whispers. At the gallery, patrons would suddenly hush when I entered a room. At local cafes, I'd catch snippets of conversation. My mother's name, followed by hushed tones and sidelong glances. Then came the cancellations. Donors pulled out of upcoming exhibitions, citing concerns about the gallery's reputation. Artists I'd cultivated relationships with for years suddenly became unavailable. "It's Beatrice," Ethan said grimly one evening. "She's turning her social circle against us." I felt sick. How can she have so much influence? Before Ethan could answer, his phone rang. It was his father, Marcus. As Ethan listened, his face grew pale. He put the phone on speaker. "I had no idea how unhappy I've been," Marcus was saying. "Spending time with Helen and Pete, it's opened my eyes. The way Beatrice treats people, the constant manipulation, I can't do it anymore." My heart raced. Was Ethan's father leaving Beatrice? "Dad," Ethan said carefully, "what are you saying?" There was a heavy sigh on the other end. "I'm saying I want a divorce, and I'd like to stay with you and Julia for a while, if that's all right." The moment Marcus hung up, our doorbell rang. I opened it to find my mother, tears streaming down her face. "Julia," she sobbed, "Beatrice, she's telling everyone about my past, things I've never even told you." As I held my weeping mother, the full weight of Beatrice's retaliation hit me. She wasn't just trying to ruin our reputations, she was tearing our families apart. The next few days were a blur of crisis management. We tried to counter Beatrice's rumors, but her influence ran deep. My father's plans for the new bookshop stalled as investors pulled out. The gallery board called an emergency meeting to discuss my future. Through it all, Ethan stood by me, fierce and unwavering. But I could see the toll it was taking on him. The strain of choosing between his fiancée and his mother, the pain of watching his family fracture. It all came to a head one rainy afternoon. I was at the gallery, pleading my case to the board, when Ethan burst in, his face ashen. "Jules," he said, his voice shaking, "it's your dad. He's in the hospital." The world seemed to tilt on its axis. "What? Why?" "Stress-induced heart attack," Ethan said softly. "Your mom's with him now." I felt my knees give way, and Ethan caught me before I could fall. As he held me, I saw Beatrice sweep into the room, a triumphant gleam in her eye. "Well," she said, her voice dripping with false concern, "I heard about your father, Julia. Such a shame. Perhaps if he hadn't been so ambitious with his little bookshop scheme, this wouldn't have happened." Something inside me snapped. All the fear, all the pain, all the anger I'd been holding back came rushing to the surface. "Enough!" I shouted, my voice echoing through the gallery. "You've won, Beatrice. Is this what you wanted, to destroy everything and everyone around you?" Beatrice's smug expression faltered for a moment, replaced by something that looked almost like regret, but I was beyond caring. "I'm done," I said, my voice breaking. "You can have your social circle, your reputation, everything. Just leave us alone." I turned to Ethan, tears streaming down my face. "I'm sorry," I whispered. "I can't do this anymore. I can't be the reason your family falls apart." As I ran out of the gallery into the pouring rain, I heard Ethan calling my name. But I didn't look back. I couldn't. Because I knew if I did, I might not have the strength to do what I knew I had to do. To walk away from the man I loved. To save him from having to choose between his mother and me. In that moment, soaked to the bone and feeling more alone than ever, I realized that sometimes love isn't enough. Sometimes the price of happiness is just too high. I stood outside the hospital, rain pelting my face, torn between rushing to my father's side and fleeing from the chaos Beatrice had unleashed. Suddenly, I heard rapid footsteps behind me. "Julia, wait." Ethan's voice cut through the storm. He grabbed my arm, spinning me to face him. "You can't leave. Not now." "Ethan." No," he interrupted, his eyes blazing with determination. "We're not letting her win. Not this time." Before I could respond, Charles Worthington appeared, umbrella in hand. "Julia, Ethan, Thank goodness I found you. There's something you need to see. Confused and wary, we followed Charles back into the hospital. To my shock, a crowd had gathered in the lobby, including many of Beatrice's high society friends. At the center stood Beatrice herself, looking uncharacteristically disheveled. "What's going on?" I whispered to Ethan. Charles stepped forward, his voice ringing out. "Ladies and gentlemen, I've called you here because it's time the truth came to light." He produced a stack of documents. These are records of bribes and blackmail Beatrice has been using to manipulate her social circle. She's been lying to all of you, using your secrets to control you. Gasps and murmurs rippled through the crowd. Beatrice's face drained of color. "That's not all," Charles continued. "She's been sabotaging local businesses, including Julia's family bookshop, all in a misguided attempt to settle an old grudge." I watched in awe as Beatrice's carefully constructed world crumbled around her. Her friends turned away in disgust, whispering among themselves. Suddenly, Marcus pushed through the crowd. "Beatrice," he said, his voice heavy with disappointment, "I've filed for divorce. I can't be part of this toxicity any longer." Beatrice's eyes darted wildly, landing on Ethan and me. For a moment, I saw something I'd never seen in her before. Vulnerability. "Ethan," she pleaded, "you can't believe this. I did it all for you, to protect you from what, Mom?" Ethan asked softly. "From love? From happiness? Julia and her family have shown me more love and acceptance than you ever have." Beatrice crumpled, sobs racking her body. As much as I wanted to feel triumphant, I felt only pity. I stepped forward, surprising even myself. "Beatrice," I said gently, "it's over. The grudge, the manipulation, all of it. It's time to let go of the past." She looked up at me, tears streaming down her face. I don't know how," she whispered. In that moment, I saw not the formidable woman who had tormented us, but a scared, lonely person clinging to old wounds. "We'll help you," I said, looking at Ethan, who nodded in agreement. "But first, you need to make amends." Over the next few hours, a lifetime of secrets and resentments came pouring out. Beatrice apologized to Helen, to Marcus, to Ethan, and finally, to me. It wasn't easy, and I knew we had a long road ahead, but it was a start. As the storm outside subsided, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. My father was recovering, the truth was out, and our families, though battered, were beginning to heal. Ethan took my hand, leading me to a quiet corner. "Julia," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "after everything we've been through, I love you more than ever. Will you still marry me?" Tears welled in my eyes as I nodded, pulling him close. "Yes," I whispered, 1,000 times, "yes." In the days that followed, our community rallied around us. The gallery board reinstated me, investors returned to support my father's new bookshop venture, and even Beatrice, humbled and contrite, began the long process of making amends. As Ethan and I stood in front of our new home, a modest but warm house we'd chosen together, I realized that love truly could conquer all. Not just romantic love, but the love of family, of community, and of forgiveness. We had weathered the storm, emerging stronger and more united than ever. And as I looked at Ethan, at our families coming together to help us move in, I knew that this was just the beginning of our greatest adventure yet. The past no longer held us captive. We were free to write our own story, one filled with love, understanding, and the unbreakable bonds of family, both the ones we're born into and the ones we choose. I stared at the phone in my hand, my knuckles white from gripping it too tightly. Ethan's voice echoed in my ears, but I couldn't make sense of his words. My husband of 15 years, the father of our daughter, was telling me something that shook the very foundation of our life together. "Anna, are you still there?" Ethan's voice crackled through the speaker. I swallowed hard, forcing myself to respond. "Yes, I'm here. I can't believe what you're saying. Elise is pregnant?" "Yes, she is, and she needs our support now more than ever." I closed my eyes, trying to process this information. Elise, Ethan's younger sister, had always been a free spirit, but this was beyond anything I could have imagined. "Who's the father?" I asked, dreading the answer. There was a pause on the other end of the line. She doesn't want to say. But that's not important right now. What matters is that we're there for her. I felt a knot forming in my stomach. "Ethan, how can you say that's not important? She's married, for heaven's sake. What about Robert?" "Robert left her," Ethan said, his voice tight with anger. "He couldn't handle it. But I won't abandon my sister, Anna. I can't." The knot in my stomach tightened. There was something in Ethan's voice, a fierce protectiveness that went beyond brotherly concern. It made me uneasy. "When are you coming home?" I asked, glancing at the clock. It was almost time to pick up Mia from school. "I don't know," Ethan replied. "Elise needs me here. I might stay a few days." I bit back a sharp retort. "Ethan, we need you too. Mia has her dance recital this weekend, remember?" There was a long pause. "I'm sorry, Anna. I'll try to make it, but I can't promise anything. Elise is in a delicate state right now." I felt a surge of anger and hurt. "And what about your daughter? Isn't she important too?" "Of course she is," Ethan snapped. "But this is different. Elise is all alone." "She has you," I muttered, unable to keep the bitterness from my voice. "Anna, please try to understand. I'll be home as soon as I can." The line went dead before I could respond. I stared at the phone, a mixture of emotions swirling inside me, concern for Elise, anger at Ethan, and a growing sense of unease about the whole situation. The sound of the front door opening startled me out of my thoughts. "Mom? I'm home!" Mia's cheerful voice called out. I quickly composed myself, pushing my worries aside. "In the kitchen, sweetie?" Mia bounced in, her backpack slung over one shoulder. At 12, she was the spitting image of Ethan, with his dark hair and bright blue eyes. "Where's Dad?" she asked, looking around. I forced a smile. "He had to go help Aunt Elise with something. He'll be home in a few days." Mia's face fell. "But my recital." "I know, honey," I said, pulling her into a hug. "He'll try his best to make it." As I held my daughter, I couldn't shake the feeling that something fundamental had shifted in our family. Ethan's reaction to Elise's pregnancy, his eagerness to drop everything for her, it all felt wrong somehow. I pulled back, looking into Mia's eyes. "How about we practice your routine one more time before dinner?" Mia's face lit up. "Really? You have time?" "For you? Always," I said, meaning every word. As we moved to the living room, clearing space for Mia to dance, I pushed my worries to the back of my mind. But they lingered there. A shadow over what should have been a normal evening at home. Whatever was going on with Ethan and Elise, I had a sinking feeling that our lives were about to change dramatically. And not for the better. The days after Ethan's phone call blurred together in a haze of forced normalcy and mounting tension. I tried to keep things steady for Mia's sake, but every time my phone buzzed, I felt my stomach clench. It was a week before Ethan finally came home. I was in the kitchen when I heard the front door open. "Daddy!" Mia's excited shriek echoed through the house. I wiped my hands on a dish towel, steeling myself for the confrontation I'd been rehearsing all week. But when I walked into the living room, the words died in my throat. Ethan looked different. Haggard, with dark circles under his eyes, but there was an unsettling intensity in his gaze as he hugged Mia. "Hey, sweetie," he said, his voice rough. "I missed you." "I missed you too, Dad," Mia replied, beaming. "Did you see my recital video? Mom recorded it for you." A flicker of guilt crossed Ethan's face. "I'm sorry I missed it, honey. I'll watch it soon, I promise." I cleared my throat. "Mia, why don't you go finish your homework? I need to talk to your father." Once Mia was upstairs, I turned to Ethan. "How's Elise?" He ran a hand through his hair. "She's managing. The pregnancy's been hard on her." "And how are you managing?" I asked, unable to keep the edge from my voice. Ethan's eyes narrowed. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means you've been gone for a week, Ethan. You missed your daughter's recital. You've barely called." "I told you Elise needed me," he snapped. "She's going through a difficult time." "And we're not?" I shot back. "Do you have any idea how hard it's been trying to explain to Mia why her father wasn't here?" Ethan's face softened. "I'm sorry, Anna. I know it's been tough, but Elise, she's all alone. She needs support." "What about Robert?" I asked. "Has he really just abandoned her and their unborn child?" A strange look passed over Ethan's face. "Robert's out of the picture. For good." Something in his tone made me pause. "Ethan, what aren't you telling me?" He looked away. "Nothing. It's complicated, that's all." I stepped closer, forcing him to meet my eyes. "No, there's more to this. I can tell what's really going on with Elise." Ethan's jaw clenched. "Drop it, Anna. It's family business." "I am your family," I exclaimed, my voice rising. "Or have you forgotten that?" "Of course not," he said, but his eyes slid away from mine. "Look, I'm tired. Can we talk about this later?" Before I could respond, Mia's voice called down from upstairs. "Mom? Dad? Is everything okay?" I took a deep breath, forcing my voice to steady. Everything's fine, sweetie. Just grown-up talk. Ethan used the interruption to retreat. I'm going to take a shower, he muttered, heading for the stairs. I watched him go, a cold feeling settling in my chest. This wasn't just about Elise's pregnancy. There was something more, something Ethan wasn't telling me. That night, as we lay in bed, the silence between us felt like a chasm. I turned to face Ethan's back, watching the rise and fall of his breathing. Ethan, I whispered, what's happening to us? He didn't respond for so long I thought he'd fallen asleep. Then, so quietly I almost missed it, he murmured. I don't know, Anna. I just don't know. I rolled onto my back, staring at the ceiling. The man lying next to me suddenly felt like a stranger. The life we'd built together, the love we'd shared, it all seemed to be slipping away, and I didn't know how to stop it. As I drifted off into an uneasy sleep, one thought kept circling in my mind. Whatever was going on with Elise, it was tearing my family apart, and I was determined to find out why, no matter the cost. The shrill cry of a newborn pierced the air as I stood in the hospital corridor, my hands clenched at my sides. Ethan burst out of the delivery room, his face flushed with excitement. It's a boy, he exclaimed, grabbing my shoulders. Owen's here, Anna. He's perfect. I forced a smile, trying to match his enthusiasm. That's wonderful, Ethan. How's Elise? She's doing great, he said, his eyes shining. Come on, you have to see him. As we entered the room, I saw Elise cradling a tiny bundle. She looked up, her face glowing despite the exhaustion evident in her eyes. Anna, meet your nephew. I approached the bed, peering down at the infant. My heart softened at the sight of his scrunched-up face. He's beautiful, Elise, I said softly. Ethan moved to the other side of the bed, his hand resting on Elise's shoulder. You did amazing, sis, he murmured. Something in his tone made me look up sharply. The tenderness in Ethan's eyes as he gazed at Elise and Owen sent a chill down my spine. Where's Mia? Elise asked, breaking the moment. She's with my parents, I replied. We thought it best not to bring her to the hospital. Ethan frowned. She should be here to meet her cousin. It's late, Ethan, I said, trying to keep my voice even. She has school tomorrow. He waved dismissively. This is more important. I'll go pick her up. No, I said firmly. She needs her sleep. We can bring her tomorrow. Ethan's eyes flashed with anger. But before he could respond, a nurse entered to check on Elise and Owen. As weeks passed, Ethan's devotion to Elise and Owen only intensified. He was constantly at their house, helping with feedings, diaper changes, and midnight wake-ups. Meanwhile, our own home life suffered. One evening, I found Mia sitting alone at the dinner table, pushing food around her plate. Sweetie, what's wrong? I asked, sitting beside her. She looked up, her eyes brimming with tears. Why doesn't Dad want to be with us anymore? My heart shattered. I pulled her into a tight hug. Oh, honey, your dad loves us very much. He's trying to help Aunt Elise right now. But why does he have to help her all the time? Mia sniffled. Can't someone else do it? I had no answer for her. The truth was, I'd been asking myself the same question. Later that night, I confronted Ethan as he came home late again. This has to stop, Ethan, I said, my voice trembling with suppressed anger. Mia thinks you don't want to be with us anymore? Ethan's face hardened. That's ridiculous. Of course I want to be with you, but Elise needs me right now. And we don't, I shot back. When was the last time you had dinner with us? Or helped Mia with her homework? I'm doing the best I can, Anna, he snapped. Elise is a single mother. She needs support. And what about your own family? I asked, my voice rising. We need you too, Ethan. He ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident in every line of his body. You don't understand. Owen, he needs a father figure. I stared at him, a cold realization settling in my gut. And you think that should be you? Ethan's silence was deafening. Ethan, I said slowly, what exactly is your relationship with Elise? His head snapped up, eyes blazing. What are you implying? I don't know, I said, my voice shaking. But something isn't right here. The way you look at her, the way you prioritize them over us, it's not normal, Ethan. You're being paranoid, he spat. Elise is my sister. Owen is my nephew, that's all. But as he stormed out of the room, I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this story. Something dark and twisted that threatened to tear our family apart. I sank onto the couch, my mind reeling. Whatever was going on between Ethan and Elise, one thing was clear. I needed to protect Mia. And to do that, I might have to be prepared to fight for my family in ways I never imagined. I stared at the elaborate birthday cake on the kitchen counter, the number 13 spelled out in pink frosting. Mia's excitement had been building for weeks, and I'd promised her the best birthday party ever. But as I glanced at the clock, my heart sank. Ethan was late. Again. The doorbell rang, and I plastered on a smile as I went to greet Mia's friends. Soon the house was filled with the chatter and laughter of teenage girls. Mia kept glancing at the door, her smile faltering each time it wasn't her father walking through. "Mom," she whispered during a lull in the party games. "Where's Dad?" I squeezed her shoulder. "I'm sure he's on his way, sweetie. You know how traffic can be." But as the hours ticked by, my reassurances rang hollow. When it was time to cut the cake, Mia's eyes were bright with unshed tears. "Let's wait just a few more minutes," she pleaded. I nodded, my own anger building. I stepped into the hallway and dialed Ethan's number for the 10th time. To my surprise, he picked up. "Anna, I can't talk right now," he said, his voice hushed and urgent. "Ethan, where are you?" I hissed. "Mia's party started hours ago." I know. I'm sorry. There was an emergency with Owen." "An emergency?" I interrupted. "Is he okay?" There was a pause. "He's fine now. Just a little fever. But Elise was panicking and I had to." "Had to what, Ethan?" I snapped. "Miss your daughter's 13th birthday for a fever? Couldn't Elise handle it on her own?" "You don't understand," he said, frustration evident in his voice. "Elise needs me." "And Mia doesn't." I was nearly shouting now. "Get your priorities straight, Ethan. Your daughter is waiting for you." I hung up before he could respond, taking a deep breath to compose myself before returning to the party. Mia's face fell when she saw me return alone. "He's not coming, is he?" I pulled her into a hug, feeling her body shake with silent sobs. "I'm so sorry, sweetheart. But we're not going to let that ruin your day, okay? Let's cut that cake." The party continued, but the joy had been sucked out of it. As the last guest left, Mia retreated to her room without a word. I was clearing up when Ethan finally came home, looking haggard and guilty. "Where's Mia?" he asked, his eyes darting around the room. "In her room," I said coldly. "Crying, probably. Nice of you to show up." Ethan's face crumpled. "Anna, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to." "Save it," I cut him off. "I'm not the one you need to apologize to." He nodded and headed upstairs. I followed, lingering in the hallway as he knocked on Mia's door. "Mia? Sweetheart, can I come in?" There was no response. Ethan opened the door slowly and I heard Mia's muffled sobs. "Oh, honey," Ethan said, his voice breaking. "I'm so sorry." "Why weren't you here?" Mia's voice was small and hurt. "Samna, don't you care about me anymore?" "Of course I do," Ethan exclaimed. "You're my little girl. I love you more than anything." "Then why are you always with Aunt Elise and Owen?" Mia asked. "Don't we matter anymore?" There was a long pause. When Ethan spoke again, his voice was strained. "It's complicated, sweetheart. Aunt Elise and Owen, they need me right now." "And we don't." Mia's voice rose. "I needed you today, Dad, and you weren't here." I couldn't take it anymore. I stepped into the room, my eyes locking with Ethan's. "I think you should go," I said quietly. Ethan looked between Mia and me, desperation in his eyes. "Anna, please." "No," I said firmly. "You've made your choice, Ethan. Now you need to live with it." As Ethan left, his shoulders slumped in defeat. I sat on the bed and pulled Mia close. She clung to me, her tears soaking my shirt. In that moment, I knew things would never be the same. The life we'd built was crumbling, and I had to decide how to protect what mattered most, my daughter. The tension in our house had become unbearable since Mia's birthday disaster. Ethan was spending more time than ever at Elise's, and when he was home, the silence between us was deafening. I'd reached my breaking point. One evening, as Ethan was heading out yet again, I blocked the door. "We need to talk," I said firmly. He sighed, checking his watch. "Can it wait? Elise is expecting me." "No, it can't," I snapped. "Sit down, Ethan. Now." Reluctantly, he followed me to the living room. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the confrontation I'd been avoiding for months. "What's really going on between you and Elise?" I asked bluntly. Ethan's face hardened. "We've been through this, Anna. She's my sister. I'm helping her with Owen." "It's more than that," I pressed. "The way you look at her, the way you prioritize them over us, it's not normal, Ethan." He stood up abruptly. "You're being ridiculous. Is this why you stopped me to accuse me of what exactly?" I met his gaze unflinchingly. "I don't know. You tell me. because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're in love with your sister." The color drained from Ethan's face. For a moment, he looked like I'd slapped him. Then his expression twisted into something I'd never seen before. A mix of anger, guilt, and relief. "You have no idea what you're talking about," he hissed. "Then explain it to me," I shouted, my composure finally cracking. "Because I'm losing my husband, Mia's losing her father, and I don't understand why." Ethan paced the room, running his hands through his hair. "It's complicated, Anna. Elise and I, we have a bond you couldn't possibly understand." "Try me," I said, my voice cold. He stopped, turning to face me. "Elise and I, we've always been close. Closer than most siblings. When she got pregnant, when Robert left her, I couldn't abandon her. I couldn't let her face that alone." "But Owen isn't just your nephew, is he?" I whispered, the horrible realization dawning on me. Ethan's silence was all the confirmation I needed. I felt the room spin, nausea rising in my throat. "How long?" I managed to choke out. "Anna, please." "How long, Ethan?" I demanded. He slumped onto the couch, defeated. "Years. Since we were teenagers. It just happened." I stumbled back, gripping the wall for support. "And Owen?" Ethan nodded, unable to meet my eyes. The betrayal, the lies, the years of deception, it all came crashing down on me. I felt like I was drowning, gasping for air in a world that no longer made sense. "Does Mia know?" I asked, my voice barely audible. "God, no," Ethan said quickly. "We never wanted to hurt her, or you. We tried to end it so many times, but you couldn't," I finished for him. "And now there's a child." Ethan looked up, his eyes pleading. "I know it's wrong, I know it's messed up, but I love them, Anna. I can't abandon them now." In that moment, looking at the man I thought I knew, I felt something inside me harden. The shock and pain gave way to a cold, clear purpose. "Get out," I said quietly. "What?" "Get out of this house," I repeated, my voice gaining strength. "Pack your things and leave." "Anna, please, we can work this out." "There's nothing to work out," I cut him off. "You made your choice a long time ago, Ethan. Now I'm making mine." As Ethan gathered his belongings, moving like a man in a daze, I sat at the kitchen table, my mind racing. I knew the road ahead would be hard. Explaining this to Mia, dealing with the inevitable fallout when the truth came out, it would be a nightmare. But as I heard the front door close behind Ethan for the last time, I felt a strange sense of calm. The life I thought I had was over, but in its place, I saw a chance for something new. A life built on truth, not lies. A life where I could protect Mia from the twisted web her father had woven. It wouldn't be easy, but as I climbed the stairs to wake Mia and begin the hardest conversation of our lives, I knew one thing for certain. We would survive this. We had to. The invitation to Owen's first birthday party sat on our kitchen counter like a ticking time bomb. Mia eyed it warily, her young face etched with a wariness no 13-year-old should possess. "Do we have to go, Mom?" she asked, her voice small. I sighed, pulling her close. "I think we should, sweetie. He's still your cousin." The truth was, I dreaded this party as much as Mia did. But after months of separation and tense co-parenting arrangements, I felt we needed to make an appearance, if only to show Ethan we were moving on. As we pulled up to Elise's house, my stomach churned. Colorful balloons decorated the front yard, a cheerful facade that felt like a mockery of the turmoil beneath. Ethan greeted us at the door, his smile strained. "Anna, Mia, I'm glad you came." Mia brushed past him without a word, heading straight for a group of cousins in the backyard. I followed Ethan inside, steeling myself for what lay ahead. The house was filled with family members, many of whom shot curious glances our way. I plastered on a smile, determined to get through this for Mia's sake. Elise approached, Owen balanced on her hip. "Anna, thank you for coming," she said, her voice syrupy sweet. "It means so much to us." I nodded stiffly, unable to form words. The sight of Owen, with his familiar blue eyes, Ethan's eyes, made my chest tighten. As the party progressed, I kept a watchful eye on Mia. She seemed to be holding up well, laughing with her cousins and pointedly avoiding Ethan and Elise. It wasn't until the cake-cutting ceremony that things took a turn. Ethan stood up, tapping his glass for attention. "I'd like to make a toast," he announced, his eyes shining. "To Owen, our beautiful boy, and to family, the bonds that tie us together no matter what." His gaze lingered on Elise, and I saw her blush. My stomach turned. "Owen's arrival has made me realize what truly matters," Ethan continued. "Family is everything, and I have a vision for our future. a future where our children carry on our legacy. I frowned, a sense of unease growing. In fact, Ethan said, his voice filled with misplaced pride, I've already started planning for Owen and Mia's future together. Wouldn't it be wonderful to see them united, keeping our family's bond strong? The room fell silent. I felt the blood drain from my face as the implications of his words sank in. What are you talking about? I demanded, my voice shaking. Ethan turned to me, his eyes bright with a fervor I didn't recognize. Think about it, Owen. Cousins united in marriage. It's perfect. Our family's legacy preserved. I stood up so quickly my chair toppled backward. Have you lost your mind? I hissed. Mia is 13. Owen is a baby. And they're cousins. It's not unheard of. Ethan argued, oblivious to the horrified looks around him. In many cultures. Stop it, I shouted. Just stop. This is sick, Ethan. You're sick. I scanned the room for Mia, panic rising when I couldn't see her. Then I heard a sob from the hallway. I rushed out to find Mia curled up on the floor, her body shaking. Oh, baby, I whispered, gathering her in my arms. I'm so sorry. We're leaving now. Ethan appeared in the doorway. Anna, wait, let me explain. There's nothing to explain. I spat, helping Mia to her feet. Stay away from us, Ethan. I mean it. As we hurried to the car, Mia clung to me, her tears soaking my shirt. Mom, she whimpered, what's wrong with Dad? I held her tighter, my mind racing. How could I protect her from this? How had things gone so terribly wrong? Driving away from Elise's house, I made a decision. This wasn't just about a broken marriage anymore. This was about protecting Mia from a toxic, twisted family dynamic that threatened to destroy her. As we pulled into our driveway, I turned to Mia, my resolve hardening. Pack a bag, sweetheart. We're going to Grandma and Grandpa's for a while. Mia nodded, relief flooding her tear-stained face. As she ran inside, I sat in the car, my hands gripping the steering wheel. I knew the road ahead would be tough, but I was ready to fight. For Mia, for our future, for the family we deserved. The drive to my parents' house was a blur of streetlights and Mia's muffled sobs. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white, my mind racing with the enormity of what had just happened. As we pulled into the driveway, my mother rushed out, her face etched with concern. Anna, what's wrong? Is Mia okay? I shook my head, unable to form words. We stumbled inside, Mia clinging to me like a lifeline. It's Ethan, I finally managed to choke out. He's lost his mind. Over cups of strong tea, with Mia safely tucked away in the guest room, I poured out the whole sordid story to my parents. Their faces morphed from shock to horror to outrage. You can't go back there, my father said firmly. You and Mia will stay here as long as you need. I nodded gratefully, feeling a small measure of relief, but I knew this was just the beginning. The next morning, as Mia slept, my phone buzzed incessantly with messages from Ethan. Anna, please, let me explain. You're overreacting. Think of Mia. We can work this out. Come home. I deleted each one, my resolve strengthening with every plea. But then came a message that made my blood run cold. If you don't bring Mia home, I'll file for full custody. Don't test me, Anna. My hands shook as I showed the message to my parents. He can't do that, can he? I whispered. My father's face hardened. We won't let him. I'm calling our lawyer right now. The next few days were a whirlwind of legal consultations and hushed conversations. Mia wandered through the house like a ghost, her eyes haunted. I tried to shield her from the worst of it, but I knew she sensed the tension. On the fourth day, as I was helping my mother with dinner, the doorbell rang. My heart stopped when I saw Ethan standing there, his eyes wild. Where's Mia? He demanded, trying to push past me. I stood my ground. You need to leave, Ethan. Now. She's my daughter, he shouted. You can't keep her from me. Mia appeared at the top of the stairs, her face pale. Dad? Ethan's expression softened. Mia, sweetheart, come on, we're going home. I moved to block the stairs. She's not going anywhere with you. Ethan's face contorted with rage. He lunged forward, grabbing my arm. You can't do this, Anna. You can't take my family away from me. Let go of her. My father's voice boomed as he appeared from the kitchen, phone in hand. The police are on their way, Ethan. Leave now, or you'll be arrested. For a moment I thought Ethan might actually hit my father, but then, as if deflating, he released my arm and stumbled back. This isn't over, he hissed. I'll see you in court. As he stormed off, I collapsed against the wall, my legs giving out. Mia rushed down the stairs, throwing herself into my arms. "Mom," she sobbed, "I'm scared." I held her tight, my own tears falling. "I know, baby. I am too, but we're going to be okay. I promise. I promise." That night, as Mia finally slept, curled up next to me in the guest room bed, I stared at the ceiling, my mind racing. The life I'd known was gone, shattered beyond repair. The man I'd loved, the father of my child, had become a stranger, a threat. I knew the road ahead would be hard. A custody battle, the inevitable gossip and judgment from those who didn't know the whole story, the challenge of rebuilding our lives from scratch. But as I looked at Mia's peaceful face, I felt a fierce determination well up inside me. No matter what it took, no matter how hard I had to fight, I would protect my daughter. I would give her the safe, loving home she deserved, even if it meant facing down Ethan and his twisted family alone. As the first light of dawn crept through the window, I made a silent vow. This wasn't just about survival anymore. This was about reclaiming our lives, our happiness, our future. And I was ready for the fight. The courtroom felt suffocating as I sat, hands clasped tightly in my lap, waiting for the judge to return with her decision. Mia sat beside me, her face pale but determined. Across the aisle, Ethan glared, his eyes cold and unfamiliar. The past 6 months had been a nightmare of legal battles, therapy sessions, and sleepless nights. But through it all, Mia and I had grown stronger, our bond unbreakable in the face of adversity. The judge entered, her face unreadable. "In the matter of custody for Mia Stewart, I've reached a decision." I held my breath, feeling Mia's hand slip into mine. "Full custody is granted to Anna Stewart, with supervised visitation for Ethan Stewart, for pending completion of mandatory counseling and evaluation." Relief washed over me like a tidal wave. Mia threw her arms around me, tears streaming down her face. "We did it, Mom," she whispered. As we left the courtroom, Ethan approached, his face a mask of anger and desperation. "This isn't over, Anna. I'll appeal." "No, Ethan." I cut him off, my voice steady. "It is over. For Mia's sake, get help. Be the father she deserves." With that, we walked away, leaving behind the shattered remains of our old life. The next few months were a whirlwind of change. We moved into a small apartment, just Mia and me. I found a job at a local community center helping families in crisis. The irony wasn't lost on me, but the work felt right, like I was finally where I was meant to be. Mia thrived in her new school, making friends and rediscovering her love for art. Slowly, the haunted look left her eyes, replaced by a spark of joy and hope. One evening, as we sat on our tiny balcony watching the sunset, Mia turned to me. "Mom, are you happy?" I looked at her, really looked at the strong, resilient young woman she was becoming, and felt a surge of pride and love. "Yes, sweetheart, I am. Are you?" She nodded, a small smile playing on her lips. "I am. I miss Dad sometimes, but I'm glad we're here. Just us." I pulled her close, kissing the top of her head. "Me too, baby. Me too." As the years passed, our little family of 2 grew stronger. Ethan eventually completed his counseling and began supervised visits with Mia. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. Elise and Owen faded into the background, a painful chapter closed. On Mia's 18th birthday, we threw a small party in our apartment. As I watched her blow out the candles, surrounded by friends and laughter, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. Later that night, as we cleaned up, Mia hugged me tightly. "Thank you, Mom," she said, her voice thick with emotion, "for everything, for being strong enough for both of us." Tears pricked my eyes as I held her close. "Oh, Mia, you were the strong one. You gave me the courage to fight." As she pulled away, wiping her eyes, she grinned. "We make a pretty good team, huh?" I laughed, feeling lighter than I had in years. The best. That night, as I lay in bed, I reflected on the journey that had brought us here. The pain, the fear, the heartbreak, it had all led to this moment of quiet joy. I'd lost the life I thought I wanted, but I'd gained something far more precious, a true understanding of my own strength and an unbreakable bond with my daughter. I thought of the frightened, confused woman I'd been all those years ago, receiving that fateful phone call from Ethan. If I could go back, I'd tell her, "You're stronger than you know. Trust yourself. Fight for what matters. The road ahead is hard, but the destination is worth every step." As I drifted off to sleep, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. We'd weathered the storm, Mia and I. We'd faced the darkness and emerged into the light, scarred but unbroken. And whatever challenges lay ahead, I knew we'd face them together, with love, courage, and the unshakable bond between a mother and daughter. In the end, that was the greatest victory of all. The scent of lavender fabric softener clung to Peter's shirt as I pulled it from the dryer. It was a comforting smell, one that usually brought a smile to my face. But not today. Today, as I reached into his pocket to check for loose change before folding, my fingers brushed against something cold and metallic. I fished it out, my heart racing as I uncurled my fingers. There, nestled in my palm, was a delicate gold wedding band. But it wasn't mine. Hannah? Peter's voice echoed from downstairs. Have you seen my blue tie? I froze, the ring burning in my hand. Just a minute, I called back, my voice surprisingly steady. I quickly slipped the ring into my own pocket and grabbed his tie from the laundry basket. As I descended the stairs, Peter was pacing in the living room, checking his watch. There you are, he said, barely looking up. I'm running late for my meeting. I handed him the tie, studying his face. Did he know I'd found the ring? Was there a flicker of guilt in his eyes? But he just gave me a perfunctory peck on the cheek and headed for the door. Peter, I said, my voice catching. He turned, eyebrows raised. I was thinking we could have dinner together tonight. It's been a while since we've had a proper meal, just the two of us. He sighed, checking his watch again. I don't know, Hannah. This project is really heating up. I might be working late. Oh. I tried to hide my disappointment. Well, maybe tomorrow then? We'll see, he said, already halfway out the door. Don't wait up. The slam of the door echoed through the empty house. I sank onto the couch, my hand instinctively reaching for the ring in my pocket. 20 years of marriage, and this is what it had come to. Secrets and lies wrapped in a gold band that wasn't mine. I pulled out my phone, my finger hovering over my best friend Maggie's number. But what would I say? Hey Mag, I think my husband's cheating on me. The words stuck in my throat. Instead, I found myself dialing another number. It rang twice before a cheerful voice answered. Moore and Associates, how may I direct your call? Yes, hello, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I'd like to speak with someone about hiring a private investigator. There was a pause on the other end. Of course, ma'am. I'll transfer you to Mr. Moore. May I have your name? I hesitated, then squared my shoulders. Hannah Thompson. As I waited to be transferred, I caught sight of our wedding photo on the mantel. Peter and I, young and in love, beaming at the camera. When had that happiness slipped away? And more importantly, how had I not noticed? The line clicked and a deep voice came on. Mrs. Thompson, this is Jack Moore. I understand you're interested in our services. I took a deep breath, twisting my ring on my finger. Yes, Mr. Moore, I need your help. I think my husband is having an affair. There was a moment of silence, then Mr. Moore spoke again, his voice gentle but professional. I'm sorry to hear that, Mrs. Thompson. Can you tell me what's led you to this conclusion? I opened my mouth to respond, but the words caught in my throat. How could I explain the years of growing distance, the late nights at the office, the way Peter's eyes no longer lit up when he saw me? And now, the damning evidence of that other ring, hidden away in Peter's pocket like a dirty secret. As I struggled to find the right words, I heard the front door open. My heart leapt into my throat. I'm sorry, Mr. Moore, I whispered urgently. I have to go. I'll call you back. I ended the call just as Peter walked into the living room, his brow furrowed. Hannah, who were you talking to? I plastered on a smile, hoping he couldn't hear the pounding of my heart. Oh, just Maggie. Girl talk, you know? He nodded absently, already loosening his tie. Listen, I forgot some files I need for my meeting. I'll be heading back out in a minute. As he climbed the stairs, I felt the weight of the other woman's ring in my pocket, a silent accusation against the man I thought I knew. In that moment, I made a decision. I wouldn't confront Peter, not yet. First, I needed answers, and I would get them, no matter the cost. I couldn't sleep that night, tossing and turning as memories of Peter and I flooded my mind. How had we gone from that bright-eyed couple to this? I glanced at Peter's sleeping form, his back turned to me. When had that become the norm? As dawn broke, I slipped out of bed, careful not to wake him. In the kitchen, I absently stirred my coffee, lost in thought. The first time I met Peter flashed before my eyes. A chance encounter at a bookstore, both of us reaching for the same novel. You have excellent taste, he'd said, flashing that charming smile that made my heart skip a beat. We'd spent hours talking that day about books, dreams, life. It felt like I'd known him forever. Now, 20 years later, I wondered if I'd ever really known him at all. The sound of Peter's footsteps jolted me back to reality. He entered the kitchen, already dressed for work. "Morning," he mumbled, barely glancing my way as he poured his coffee. I took a deep breath. "Peter, I was thinking, maybe we could take a weekend trip soon? Just the two of us?" He frowned, checking his phone. "Hannah, you know how busy work is right now. I can't just take off." "It doesn't have to be now." I pressed. "Maybe next month? We could go to that little B&B we loved, remember?" Peter sighed, finally looking at me. "Look, I appreciate the thought, but now's not a good time. Maybe later, okay?" As he turned to leave, I felt something inside me snap. "When is it ever a good time, Peter? When was the last time we did anything together?" He paused, his back to me. "Hannah, don't start. I don't have time for this right now." "You never have time," I exclaimed, my voice rising. "You're always working, always busy. It's like I don't even exist anymore." Peter whirled around, his face flushed with anger. "What do you want from me, Hannah? I'm working my ass off to provide for us, and all you do is complain." His words hit me like a slap. "All I do? I've dedicated my life to our home, to you. And this is how you repay me?" For a moment, I thought I saw a flicker of guilt in his eyes, but it was quickly replaced by cold indifference. "I have to go," he said flatly. "We'll talk about this later." As the door slammed behind him, I sank to the floor, my body shaking with sobs. How had we become strangers living under the same roof? With trembling hands, I pulled out my phone and dialed Mr. Moore's number. It was time to face the truth, no matter how painful. "Mrs. Thompson," his calm voice answered. "I'm glad you called back. Are you ready to proceed?" I took a deep breath, steeling myself. "Yes, Mr. Moore, I need to know the truth about my husband." "I understand," he replied. "Can you tell me about any suspicious behavior you've noticed?" I hesitated, then spilled everything, the late nights, the emotional distance, and finally, the ring I'd found. As I spoke, I felt a strange mix of relief and dread. "That's certainly concerning," Mr. Moore said when I finished. "We'll start our investigation immediately. But Mrs. Thompson, I must warn you, are you prepared for what we might uncover?" The question hung in the air, heavy with implications. Was I ready to have my worst fears confirmed, to have my entire life upended? "I have to know," I whispered, more to myself than to Mr. Moore. "Whatever it is, I need to know the truth." "Very well," he replied. "We'll be in touch soon with our findings." As I ended the call, I noticed a text from Peter. "Working late tonight, don't wait up." My fingers hovered over the keypad, a dozen angry responses flashing through my mind. Instead, I simply replied, "Okay." I looked around our home, filled with memories of happier times, photos of our wedding, our honeymoon, holidays spent together. Each image now felt like a mockery of what we'd become. Whatever Mr. Moore uncovered, I knew one thing for certain: nothing would ever be the same again. And as that realization sank in, I felt a strange sense of calm wash over me. The worst was yet to come, but for the first time in years, I was ready to face it head on. The manila envelope sat on the kitchen table, taunting me. Mr. Moore had delivered it personally this morning, his face grim as he handed it over. "Mrs. Thompson," he'd said, "I think you should prepare yourself." Now, hours later, I still couldn't bring myself to open it. The truth I'd been seeking suddenly felt too heavy to bear. But as I heard Peter's key in the lock, I knew it was now or never. "Hannah?" Peter called out, his voice echoing through the house. "You home?" I took a deep breath, steeling myself. In the kitchen. He walked in, loosening his tie. His eyes fell on the envelope. "What's that?" "Why don't you tell me, Peter?" I said, my voice surprisingly steady. I pushed the envelope towards him. "Go ahead, open it." Confusion flickered across his face as he reached for it. "Hannah, what's going on?" "Just open it," I repeated, my heart pounding. As Peter pulled out the contents, photographs, hotel receipts, a transcript of a damning phone conversation, I watched the color drain from his face. "Hannah," he started, his voice low. "I can explain." "Explain?" I cut him off, anger surging through me. "Explain how you've been lying to me for months, how you've been sneaking around with her." I grabbed one of the photos, shoving it in his face. It showed Peter and a young blonde woman, locked in an intimate embrace outside a hotel. "Who is she, Peter? How long has this been going on? He ran a hand through his hair, sighing heavily. Her name's Amber. We met at a conference 6 months ago. It just happened. It just happened, I repeated incredulously. For 6 months? And what about this? I pulled out the other woman's wedding ring from my pocket, the one I'd found in his laundry. Peter's eyes widened in recognition. Where did you? It doesn't matter, I snapped. What matters is that you've been living a double life, Peter. You've made a fool of me, of our marriage. Oh, come on, Hannah, Peter scoffed, his initial shock giving way to defensiveness. It's not like our marriage has been perfect. When was the last time you did anything besides play housewife? His words hit me like a slap. Play housewife? I've dedicated my life to our home, to you. And that's the problem, Peter shouted, slamming his hand on the table. You've become nothing but a housewife. Where's the woman I fell in love with, the one with dreams and ambitions? I stared at him, stunned. So this is my fault? Because I chose to support you, to build our life together? Peter's face softened slightly. Hannah, that's not what I meant. It's just, things change, people change. And instead of talking to me about it, you decided to cheat? I felt tears stinging my eyes. Was I really that unimportant to you? Of course not, Peter said, reaching for my hand. I jerked away. Hannah, please, we can work this out. I'll end things with Amber. We can go to counseling. No, I cut him off, my voice firm. There's no coming back from this, Peter. You've broken us beyond repair. So that's it? Peter's voice rose again. 20 years of marriage, and you're just giving up? I'm not the one who gave up, I shot back. You did that the moment you decided to betray me. We stood there, the weight of 2 decades crumbling between us. Finally, Peter spoke, his voice cold. Fine. If that's how you want it, I'll call my lawyer in the morning. As he stormed out of the kitchen, I called after him, Peter. He turned, a flicker of hope in his eyes. Don't forget to take your girlfriend's ring with you, I said, tossing it at his feet. The sound of the front door slamming echoed through the house. I sank into a chair, my body shaking with sobs. Everything I thought I knew, everything I'd built my life around had just shattered. But as the initial shock subsided, I felt something else stirring within me. A spark of determination. Peter might have broken my heart, but I refused to let him break my spirit. Whatever came next, I would face it head on. This wasn't the end of my story. It was just the beginning of a new chapter. The house felt emptier than ever as I wandered from room to room, unable to settle. It had been 3 days since my confrontation with Peter, and he hadn't come home since. Part of me was relieved, but another part, a part I hated, missed him desperately. I found myself in our bedroom, staring at the photos on the dresser. 20 years of memories, now tainted by betrayal. As I picked up our wedding photo, something inside me cracked. What if I had overreacted? What if there was still a chance to save our marriage? Before I could talk myself out of it, I grabbed my phone and dialed Peter's number. It went straight to voicemail. Peter, it's me, I said, my voice shaking. I think we need to talk. Please come home. Hours passed with no response. I paced the living room, rehearsing what I'd say when he arrived, how I'd apologize for my anger, how we could work through this together. But as night fell, the house remained silent. Just as I was about to give up hope, I heard a key in the lock. My heart leaped as Peter walked in, looking tired and disheveled. Hannah, he said, his voice wary, I got your message. I took a deep breath. Peter, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have reacted so harshly. I think if we just talk. Stop. He cut me off, holding up a hand. Hannah, I'm only here to get some clothes. I'm staying at Amber's for now. His words hit me like a punch to the gut. You're living with her? Peter sighed, running a hand through his hair. It's complicated, Hannah. But yes, I am. But I called to apologize, to try and work things out, I stammered, feeling foolish and small. Work things out? Peter laughed bitterly. Hannah, our marriage has been over for a long time. We were just going through the motions. That's not true, I protested weakly. We can fix this, Peter. We can go to counseling, try to reconnect. I don't want to fix it. Peter exploded, his face flushed with anger. Don't you get it? I'm in love with Amber. She understands me in a way you never have. I felt like I was drowning, grasping for anything to keep me afloat. But what about our life together? Our home, our memories. Peter's expression softened slightly. I'm sorry, Hannah. I truly am. But I can't keep living a lie. Amber's pregnant. We're starting a family together. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. Pregnant, I whispered, my voice barely audible. How long have you known? A few weeks, Peter admitted. I was trying to find the right time to tell you. Anger surged through me, momentarily displacing the shock. The right time? Was that before or after you let me humiliate myself by begging you to come back? Peter at least had the decency to look ashamed. I'm sorry, Hannah. I never meant for things to end this way. As he turned to head upstairs, presumably to pack his things, something inside me snapped. You're sorry? I shouted, following him. You destroy our marriage, get another woman pregnant, and all you can say is you're sorry? Peter whirled around, his face contorted with frustration. What do you want from me, Hannah? I've made my choice. It's time for you to accept it and move on. Move on? I laughed hysterically. You've taken everything from me, Peter. My trust, my love, my future. What exactly am I supposed to move on to? For a moment, I saw a flicker of the man I'd fallen in love with in Peter's eyes, but it quickly vanished, replaced by cold determination. That's not my problem anymore, Hannah. I'll have my lawyer contact you about the divorce proceedings. As Peter disappeared into our bedroom, no, his old bedroom, I stood frozen in the hallway. The life I'd known, the future I'd planned, was crumbling around me. But as the initial shock wore off, I felt something else rising within me, a fierce, burning anger. Peter might think he'd taken everything from me, but he was wrong. I still had my dignity, my strength, and as I listened to him pack, I made a decision. This wasn't the end of my story. It was the beginning of my revenge. The divorce papers arrived on a Tuesday, a crisp manila envelope that felt like a death sentence for my marriage. I stared at Peter's signature, the familiar scrawl now seeming cold and foreign. My hands shook as I reached for the phone, dialing my sister Kate's number. Hannah, what's wrong? Kate's concerned voice came through. He's really doing it, Kate, I choked out. Peter's filed for divorce. Oh, honey, Kate sighed. I'm coming over. Don't you dare sign anything until I get there. An hour later, Kate was at my kitchen table, poring over the documents. Her brow furrowed as she flipped through the pages. Hannah, have you read this thoroughly? I shook my head, still numb. I just saw his signature and... Kate's face hardened. Well, you need to read it. Peter's trying to screw you over. Those words jolted me out of my stupor. What do you mean? He's claiming that since you were just a housewife, Kate spat the words, you're not entitled to half of the assets. He's offering you a pittance, Hannah. Anger flared within me, momentarily displacing the grief. How dare he? I supported him through law school. I managed our home. I know, sis, Kate interrupted gently, but Peter's a lawyer. He knows how to manipulate the system. As the reality of the situation sank in, a new wave of despair washed over me. What am I going to do, Kate? I don't have any money of my own. How can I fight this? Kate squeezed my hand. You're not alone, Hannah. We'll figure this out. Just then my phone buzzed with a text. It was from an unknown number. Mrs. Thompson, this is Jack Moore. I have some information you need to see. Can we meet? I showed the message to Kate, explaining about the private investigator I'd hired. Hannah, Kate said slowly, I think you need to meet with him. Peter's playing dirty. It's time you fought back. The next day, I met Mr. Moore at a quiet cafe. He slid a thick folder across the table. Mrs. Thompson, what I found goes beyond just the affair. With trembling hands, I opened the folder. Inside were bank statements, property deeds, and offshore account details. My eyes widened as I realized what I was looking at. Peter's been hiding assets, Mr. Moore explained. Significant ones. He's been preparing for this divorce for months, maybe even years. The betrayal cut deep, but something else was rising within me. A fierce determination. What does this mean for the divorce? Mr. Moore leaned forward. It means you have leverage, Mrs. Thompson. Peter's committed fraud. If this comes to light, he could lose his law license. As the implications sank in, I felt a strange calm settle over me. Thank you, Mr. Moore. You've been incredibly helpful. Leaving the cafe, I called Kate. I need you to recommend a good divorce lawyer, I said, my voice steady. The best you know. Hannah? Kate sounded surprised by my tone. What happened? I'm done being the victim, Kate. Peter thinks he can walk all over me. He's about to learn how wrong he is. That evening, as I sat in my empty house, I pulled out an old photo album. Pictures of Peter and me in happier times stared back at me. I traced Peter's face in our wedding photo, remembering the man I thought I'd married. "You should have been honest with me, Peter," I whispered to the smiling face. "Now all bets are off." I closed the album with a snap, my mind made up. Tomorrow I'd meet with a lawyer. I'd fight for what was rightfully mine. And Peter? He was about to discover that the just a housewife he'd dismissed was a force to be reckoned with. As I climbed into my bed that night, I felt something I hadn't in weeks. Hope. This wasn't the end of my story. It was the beginning of my comeback. The sleek office of Sarah Goldstein, divorce attorney extraordinaire, felt like a war room. Spread across her desk were the documents Mr. Moore had provided, along with the insulting divorce papers Peter had served me. "Hannah," Sarah said, her eyes sharp behind her glasses, "with this evidence of hidden assets, we have a strong case, but we need to move fast." I nodded, a newfound determination coursing through me. "What's our next step?" "We file a countersuit," Sarah explained. "We'll demand a full financial disclosure and push for an emergency hearing. Peter won't see it coming." As we strategized, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Peter. "We need to talk. Meet me at the house tonight." I showed Sarah the message. She frowned. "Be careful, Hannah. He might be trying to manipulate you." "I know," I replied, my jaw set. "But I'm not the same woman he left behind. I can handle Peter now." That evening, I walked into our once shared home, my heart pounding, but my resolve firm. Peter was waiting in the living room, looking haggard. "Hannah," he started, his voice softer than I'd heard in months. "I've been thinking maybe we rushed into this divorce. Maybe we could try counseling?" For a moment my heart leapt, but then I remembered the hidden assets, the lies, the other woman carrying his child. "Why the sudden change of heart, Peter?" He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture I once found endearing. "I miss you, Hannah, our life together. It's not the same with, well, you know." "With Amber?" I supplied, watching him flinch at the name. "Your pregnant girlfriend?" Peter's eyes widened. "How did you?" "I know a lot of things now, Peter." I cut him off, including the offshore accounts and hidden properties. The color drained from his face. "Hannah, I can explain." "Save it," I snapped. "I'm done with your explanations and your lies. You wanted a divorce? You've got one, but it's going to be on my terms now." Peter's demeanor changed instantly, his face hardening. "You're bluffing. You don't have any proof." I pulled out my phone, showing him a photo of one of the documents Mr. Moore had provided. "Want to bet your law license on that?" For a moment, I saw fear in Peter's eyes. Then, like a cornered animal, he lashed out. "You think you can threaten me? I made you, Hannah. Without me, you're nothing but a washed-up housewife." His words stung, but I refused to let him see how they affected me. "Is that what you think? Well, this washed-up housewife is about to take you for everything you've got." Peter lunged forward, grabbing my arm. "You can't do this to me. I won't let you ruin everything I've worked for." Fear surged through me, but I stood my ground. "Let go of me, Peter. Now." Just then, the front door burst open. Kate rushed in, followed by a police officer. "Hannah, are you okay? I got worried when you didn't answer my calls." Peter released me immediately, stepping back. The officer looked between us. "Is everything all right here?" I rubbed my arm, already feeling bruises forming. "No," I said firmly. "It's not. I'd like to press charges for assault." As the officer led Peter away, reading him his rights, I felt a strange mix of emotions, relief, sadness, and a grim satisfaction. Kate hugged me tightly. "Oh, Hannah, I'm so sorry. Are you sure you want to go through with the charges?" I nodded, watching as Peter was placed in the police car. Yes, it's time he faced consequences for his actions. That night, as I lay in bed, the events of the day replayed in my mind. Peter's attempt at reconciliation, his true colors showing when cornered, the fear I'd felt when he grabbed me. But beneath it all was a steely resolve. I'd stood up to Peter. I'd refused to be manipulated or intimidated. For the first time in years, I felt truly in control of my life. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, court hearings, divorce proceedings, rebuilding my life. But as I drifted off to sleep, I knew one thing for certain: I was ready to face whatever came next. The old Hannah was gone, and in her place was a woman who would never again let anyone underestimate or mistreat her. The courthouse loomed before me, its stone facade a silent witness to countless battles. Today it would host mine. I smoothed my skirt, took a deep breath, and walked in, Sarah Goldstein at my side. "Remember," Sarah whispered, "stay calm, no matter what Peter or his lawyer say. We have the upper hand." I nodded, steeling myself as we entered the courtroom. Peter was already there, looking polished in an expensive suit. Our eyes met, and I saw a flicker of surprise, perhaps at my composure, or the determination in my gaze. As the judge entered and proceedings began, I felt a surreal calm. This was it, the moment that would define my future. Peter's lawyer spoke first, painting me as a vindictive wife, making false accusations out of spite. I clenched my fists under the table, willing myself to remain stoic. Then it was Sarah's turn. She stood, her voice clear and confident. "Your Honor, we have evidence that Mr. Thompson has committed fraud by hiding substantial assets." The courtroom erupted in murmurs. Peter's face paled as Sarah presented the documents from Mr. Moore. His lawyer scrambled to object, but the judge overruled him. As Sarah detailed the offshore accounts and properties Peter had concealed, I watched him squirm. For the first time I saw fear in his eyes, the fear of a man whose carefully constructed world was crumbling. Then the bombshell. "Furthermore, Your Honor," Sarah continued, "we have evidence of Mr. Thompson's infidelity, including his relationship with a woman who is now pregnant with his child." Gasps echoed through the courtroom. Peter's lawyer leaned in, whispering furiously to him. "I caught fragments. Didn't tell me. Changes everything." The judge called a recess, and as we filed out, I felt lightheaded. Sarah squeezed my arm. "You're doing great, Hannah. Stay strong." In the hallway, Peter cornered me. "How could you do this?" he hissed. "You're ruining everything." I stood my ground. "No, Peter. You ruined everything when you decided to betray our marriage." His eyes narrowed. "You think you've won? I still have tricks up my sleeve. By the time I'm done, you'll be lucky if you get a penny." Before I could respond, a commotion erupted near the courtroom doors. A young blonde woman burst in, her pregnant belly obvious. "Peter!" she cried. "What's going on? Why didn't you tell me about this hearing?" "Amber, Peter's mistress. The woman carrying his child." Our eyes met, and I saw confusion and hurt in hers. In that moment, I felt an unexpected pang of sympathy. She, too, had been deceived by Peter. Peter looked panicked, caught between his wife and his pregnant girlfriend. "Amber, you shouldn't be here. Please, just go home." "Go home?" Amber's voice rose. "I'm carrying your child, Peter. You promised we'd be together." The hallway had gone silent, all eyes on our drama. I saw pity in some faces, disgust in others. Peter, the man I'd loved for 20 years, looked small and pathetic. Suddenly, Amber turned to me. "I'm so sorry," she sobbed. "I didn't know. He told me you were separated, that you didn't love him anymore." The weight of it all, the lies, the betrayal, the public humiliation, crashed over me. I felt my knees buckle, but Sarah caught me, steadying me. "Mrs. Thompson," the bailiff called, "the judge is ready to resume." As we re-entered the courtroom, I felt as if I was walking through a fog. Peter's deceptions had hurt not just me, but this young woman too. The life I'd built, the future I'd planned, all of it was gone. But as I took my seat, facing the judge, a strange clarity washed over me. This wasn't just about the money or the assets anymore. It was about justice, about standing up for myself and every other woman who had been lied to and manipulated. I looked at Peter, seeing him clearly for perhaps the first time. "You've lost, Peter," I said quietly. "Not just the case, but everything that ever mattered." As the judge called the court to order, I sat up straight, ready to face whatever came next. The old Hannah might have crumbled under the weight of this moment, but the woman I'd become? She was ready to fight and win. The sun streamed through the windows of my new apartment, casting a warm glow on the freshly painted walls. It had been 6 months since the fateful day in court, and my life had transformed in ways I never could have imagined. I sipped my morning coffee, savoring the quiet moment before starting my day. The stillness was interrupted by a ping from my phone, a news alert. My heart skipped a beat as I read the headline, "Prominent lawyer Peter Thompson disbarred for fraud and ethical violations." A mix of emotions washed over me. Vindication, sadness, and finally, a sense of closure. I had won the divorce settlement, exposing Peter's hidden assets and securing my financial future. But the victory had come at a cost. The scandal had rocked our community, and Peter's career had crumbled in the aftermath. As I scrolled through the article, my phone rang. It was Kate. "Hannah, have you seen the news?" she asked, her voice a mix of concern and excitement. I just did, I replied, surprised by the calmness in my voice. How are you feeling about it? Kate paused. I'm more concerned about how you're feeling. Are you okay? I took a deep breath, considering her question. You know what, Kate? I really am. For the first time in years, I feel free. We chatted for a few more minutes before I had to get ready for work. Yes, work. In the months following the divorce, I had rediscovered my passion for interior design, a dream I had set aside when I married Peter. Now I was apprenticing at a local firm, learning the ropes and building a new career. As I walked to the office, I passed the coffee shop where Peter and I used to have our Sunday brunches. Through the window, I caught a glimpse of a familiar face, Amber, Peter's former mistress. Her baby bump had given way to a stroller. Our eyes met, and after a moment's hesitation, she gave me a small, sad smile. I nodded in return, feeling a surprising lack of bitterness. We had both been victims of Peter's deception, in our own ways. At the office, my colleague Sandra greeted me with a knowing look. Quite the headlines today, huh? She said, handing me a stack of fabric swatches. I nodded, focusing on the task at hand. Life has a way of balancing the scales, I replied, surprised by the wisdom in my own words. As the day progressed, I found myself reflecting on the journey of the past year. The pain of betrayal, the fear of an uncertain future, the struggle to reclaim my identity. It had all led me here, to this moment of strength and self-discovery. That evening, as I walked home, my phone buzzed with a text. It was from Peter. My heart raced as I opened it. Hannah, I know I have no right to ask, but I need help. Can we talk? I stared at the message, memories of our life together flashing through my mind. The young, ambitious lawyer I had fallen in love with. The man who had betrayed and belittled me. The broken figure in the courtroom, watching his lies unravel. Taking a deep breath, I typed my response. I'm sorry, Peter, but that chapter of our lives is closed. I wish you well, but I can't be the one to help you anymore. As I hit send, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. The last tie to my old life had been severed. I was no longer Peter's wife, no longer the woman who would sacrifice her own needs for his ambitions. I was Hannah, strong, independent, and finally, truly free. Entering my apartment, I was greeted by the vision board I had created, filled with dreams and goals for my new life. Travel plans, design projects, even a tentative sketch for a book I hoped to write someday. Each item represented a piece of myself I was reclaiming and nurturing. As I settled onto my balcony with a glass of wine, watching the sun set over the city, I felt a profound sense of peace. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in years, I was excited about the journey. Here's to new beginnings, I whispered to myself, raising my glass to the fading light. The Hannah who had started this journey would never have believed where it would lead. But the woman I had become, she was ready for anything life might bring. And that, I realized, was the greatest victory of all. The shrill ring of my phone pierced the quiet of my kitchen, startling me so badly I nearly dropped my mug of chamomile tea. It was 11:30 p.m., far too late for a social call. My stomach clenched as I fumbled to answer. Clara, it's about Peter. There's been an accident. My brother's name, coupled with accident, sent ice through my veins. What happened? Is he okay? He's alive, but it's bad. They've taken him to Mercy General. Can you get there? I was already grabbing my keys. I'm on my way. The drive to the hospital was a blur of streetlights and racing thoughts. Peter and I had always been close, despite our occasional squabbles. He was my rock, my confidant. The thought of losing him was unbearable. At the hospital, I found Emily, my sister-in-law, pacing in the waiting room. Her mascara had left dark streaks down her cheeks. Clara, thank God you're here, she said, throwing her arms around me. I hugged her back, pushing down my own panic. What happened? Emily pulled away, wiping her eyes. He fell down the stairs at home. They think he might have had a stroke first, but they're not sure. He's in surgery now. My mind reeled. Peter was only 41. Far too young for a stroke. Have you called Mom and Dad? Emily nodded. They're on their way, but it'll take them a few hours to get here from Florida. A doctor approached us then, his face grave. Mrs. Lawson, I'm Dr. Reeves. Your husband is out of surgery, but he's in critical condition. We've induced a coma to help reduce brain swelling. Emily gasped, and I grabbed her hand. Can we see him? I asked. Dr. Reeves nodded. Briefly. Follow me. Peter looked small and fragile in the hospital bed, tubes and wires snaking from his body. I felt tears welling up as I took his hand. "Oh, Pete," I whispered. "What happened to you?" Emily stood on the other side of the bed, her face a mask of worry. "The kids are with my sister," she said softly. "I should probably call and update her." I nodded, not taking my eyes off Peter. "Go ahead. I'll stay with him." As soon as Emily left the room, I leaned in close to my brother. "Pete, if you can hear me, you need to fight. We need you here." My eyes fell on Peter's jacket, draped over a chair nearby. A folded piece of paper was peeking out of the pocket. Curiosity got the better of me, and I reached for it. The note was in Peter's handwriting, but the words made no sense. "Clara, if anything happens to me, look in the attic. The truth is hidden there. Be careful who you trust." My heart raced as I read the cryptic message. What truth? And why would Peter write such a thing? I quickly folded the note and slipped it into my own pocket, just as Emily returned. "Any change?" she asked hopefully. I shook my head, guilt gnawing at me for hiding the note. "No, he's still the same." Emily sighed, sinking into a chair. "I just don't understand how this could have happened. He was fine when I left for my book club meeting." Something in her tone made me pause. Was that a hint of defensiveness? Before I could ponder it further, my phone buzzed. It was a text from my husband, Alex. "Everything okay? You left without saying anything." I felt a pang of guilt. In my rush to get to the hospital, I hadn't even told Alex where I was going. "At the hospital." I texted back. "Peter had an accident. It's bad." His reply was immediate. "On my way." As I put my phone away, I caught Emily watching me with an odd expression. It was gone in an instant, replaced by worry for Peter. But as I settled in for a long night at the hospital, I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. Peter's mysterious note burned in my pocket, a harbinger of secrets yet to be revealed. What truth was hidden in the attic? And more importantly, who couldn't I trust? The steady beep of Peter's heart monitor filled the hospital room as I sat by his bedside, my mind drifting to happier times. I remembered summers at our grandparents' lake house, Peter and I chasing fireflies as the sun dipped below the horizon. Those carefree days seemed a lifetime ago now. "Penny for your thoughts?" Emily's voice startled me from my reverie. I forced a smile. "Just remembering better days." Emily nodded, her eyes never quite meeting mine. "Peter always said you two were inseparable as kids." "We were," I agreed, studying her face. Something about her demeanor felt off, but I couldn't put my finger on it. The weight of Peter's note in my pocket seemed to grow heavier. Just then, Alex arrived, looking harried. "Clara, I came as soon as I could. How is he?" I filled him in on Peter's condition, watching as he and Emily exchanged a look I couldn't quite decipher. A seed of doubt took root in my mind. "Emily," I said, keeping my voice casual, "I was thinking of stopping by your house to pick up some things for Peter. Maybe look for any important papers he might need." A flicker of panic crossed her face before she composed herself. "Oh, I don't think that's necessary. I can handle it." Alex jumped in. "I'm sure Emily's got it under control, Clara. No need to worry about that now." Their eagerness to keep me away from the house only fueled my suspicions. I smiled tightly. Of course, just trying to help. As the night wore on, I found myself watching Emily more closely. The ways she fidgeted with her wedding ring, her hushed conversations with Alex in the hallway, it all felt wrong somehow. When Emily stepped out to make a call, I turned to Alex. "Don't you think Emily's acting strange?" He frowned. "She's worried about her husband, Clara. We all are." "It's more than that," I insisted. "And why are you two so adamant about me not going to their house?" Alex's expression hardened. "What are you implying?" Before I could respond, my parents burst into the room, faces etched with worry. The conversation with Alex would have to wait. As Mom fussed over Peter and Dad spoke with the doctors, I slipped out to get some air. In the quiet hospital garden, I pulled out Peter's note, reading it again. "The truth is hidden there. Be careful who you trust." Who couldn't I trust? Emily? Alex? The thought of my husband being involved in whatever this was made my stomach churn. Lost in thought, I didn't notice Emily approach until she spoke. "What's that?" I quickly pocketed the note. "Nothing important." Emily's eyes narrowed. "You know, Clara, I've always admired how close you and Peter are, but sometimes I wonder if you're a little too involved in our lives." Her words carried a subtle threat that sent a chill down my spine. "He's my brother, Emily. Of course I'm involved. Just remember, she said, her voice low, family can be complicated. Sometimes it's best not to dig too deep. With that, she turned and walked away, leaving me stunned. The seed of doubt blossomed into full-blown suspicion. Back in Peter's room, I watched as Emily played the role of devoted wife, my parents none the wiser. Alex caught my eye, his expression unreadable. In that moment, I made a decision. I had to know what was in that attic, no matter the cost. Peter's life might depend on it. As everyone fussed over Peter, I slipped out, determination fueling my steps. I'd go to their house now while Emily was distracted. In the parking lot, I fumbled for my keys, my heart racing. A hand on my shoulder made me jump. Going somewhere? Alex asked, his voice tight with suspicion. I turned to face him, my resolve strengthening. I'm going to find out what's really going on, Alex. Are you going to stop me? His answer would determine everything. Alex's grip on my shoulder tightened. Clara, you're not thinking straight. Let's go back inside. I shrugged him off, anger bubbling up inside me. No, Alex, I'm thinking clearer than I have in years. What's going on? Why are you and Emily so determined to keep me away from Peter's house? His face hardened. You're being paranoid. Emily's worried about her husband and you're seeing conspiracies everywhere. Am I? I pulled out Peter's note. Then explain this. Alex's eyes widened as he read it. Where did you get that? From Peter's jacket. Now, are you going to tell me what's really happening, or do I need to find out for myself? He ran a hand through his hair, looking conflicted. Clara, please, just let this go, for all our sakes. His evasiveness only fueled my determination. I can't believe this. You're involved, aren't you? What are you and Emily hiding? Keep your voice down, Alex hissed, glancing around the parking lot. You don't understand what you're getting into. I laughed bitterly. Then explain it to me, Alex, because right now it looks like my husband and my sister-in-law are involved in something that put my brother in the hospital. Alex's face flushed with anger. You want to know the truth? Fine. Emily and we've been seeing each other. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. What? It's been going on for a while, he continued, his voice low. Peter found out. That's why he wrote that note. He was going to tell you. But then he conveniently had an accident, I finished, feeling sick. Alex's eyes widened. No, we had nothing to do with that. It was just a terrible coincidence. I shook my head, tears stinging my eyes. How can I believe anything you say now? Clara, please. He reached for me, but I stepped back. Don't touch me, I spat. How could you do this? To me, to Peter? It wasn't supposed to happen, Alex said, his voice pleading. We never meant to hurt anyone. Well, congratulations, I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm. You've succeeded spectacularly. Just then, Emily appeared at the hospital entrance. Her eyes darted between us, realization dawning on her face. What's going on? She asked, approaching cautiously. I turned to her, fury coursing through my veins. Why don't you ask your lover? Emily paled. Clara, I can explain. Save it. I cut her off. I don't want to hear your excuses. What I want to know is what really happened to my brother. Emily's eyes flashed with panic. It was an accident. You can't possibly think. I don't know what to think anymore, I interrupted, but I'm going to find out the truth, with or without your help. Alex stepped between us. Clara, you're upset. Let's not do anything rash. I laughed humorlessly. Rash? Like having an affair with your wife's sister-in-law? Or covering up whatever happened to Peter? We're not covering anything up, Emily insisted. Peter fell. That's all there is to it. But the fear in her eyes told a different story. I turned to Alex, my heart breaking. I want a separation. I can't even look at you right now. His face crumpled. Clara, please. We can work this out. Work what out? I asked, my voice rising. The fact that you've been lying to me for God knows how long? That you're somehow involved in whatever happened to my brother? You're jumping to conclusions, Alex said, his own anger flaring. If this is how little you trust me, maybe a separation is a good idea. His words hit me like a physical blow. Fine, I said, my voice cold. I'll be staying at Peter's house. Someone needs to look after his kids while their mother is otherwise occupied. Emily flinched at the barb. Clara, don't do this. Think of the family. I am thinking of the family, I retorted. The family you two seem intent on destroying. With that, I turned and walked to my car, ignoring their calls. As I drove away, I caught a glimpse of them in my rearview mirror standing close together, united in their deceit. My hands shook on the steering wheel as I headed towards Peter's house, determined to uncover the truth hidden in the attic. Whatever secrets lay there, I was ready to face them, no matter the cost. The key trembled in my hand as I unlocked Peter's front door. The house was eerily quiet, a stark contrast to the chaos in my mind. I flicked on the lights, half expecting Emily or Alex to jump out and stop me. But I was alone, surrounded by the remnants of my brother's life. I made my way upstairs, Peter's note burning a hole in my pocket. The attic door loomed before me, a portal to truths I both craved and feared. With a deep breath, I turned the handle and stepped into the musty darkness. Fumbling for the light switch, I illuminated a cluttered space filled with boxes and forgotten memories. Where to start? I began rifling through the nearest stack, my heart pounding with each document I uncovered. Hours passed as I sifted through years of accumulated papers. Just as frustration threatened to overwhelm me, a small lockbox caught my eye. It was tucked behind an old suitcase, almost hidden from view. With shaking hands, I pried it open, gasping at its contents. Inside were photos, dozens of them, of Emily with Alex. The timestamps spanned years, long before Peter's accident. My stomach churned as I realized the depth of their deception, but it was the document beneath the photos that made my blood run cold. A life insurance policy for Peter, taken out just months ago, with Emily as the sole beneficiary. The amount was staggering. "Oh God," I whispered, the pieces falling into place. This wasn't just an affair, it was something far more sinister. The sound of a car pulling up jolted me from my horrified trance. Peering out the attic window, I saw Emily's car in the driveway. Panic surged through me as I scrambled to replace the lockbox and erase any signs of my presence. I had just made it to the bottom of the attic stairs when the front door opened. Emily's voice called out, "Clara, are you here?" Forcing calm into my voice, I replied, "Up here. Just checking on some things for Peter." Emily appeared at the foot of the stairs, her face a mask of concern. "You shouldn't be here alone. Why don't you come back to the hospital?" I descended slowly, my mind racing. "I'm fine, Emily. Just needed some time to process everything." Her eyes darted to the attic door behind me. "Find anything interesting up there?" The loaded question hung in the air between us. I met her gaze steadily. Nothing worth mentioning. Yet. A flicker of something, fear, crossed her face before she composed herself. "Well, I'm here to pick up some things for Peter and to check on the kids. They're with my sister, but I thought I'd grab some of their favorite toys." I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. As Emily busied herself gathering items, I retreated to the living room, my mind whirling with the implications of what I discovered. My phone buzzed, a text from Alex. "We need to talk. Please come home." Home. The word felt hollow now, tainted by lies and betrayal. I typed back a curt reply, "Nothing to discuss. I'm staying at Peter's." Emily's voice startled me. "Everything okay?" I looked up to find her watching me intently. "Fine," I lied. "Just updating Alex on the situation." She nodded, but I could see the tension in her shoulders. "Clara, I know things are strained right now, but we're still family. If you need anything." The irony of her words nearly choked me. "What I need," I said carefully, "is for my brother to wake up and tell me what really happened that night." Emily paled slightly. "We all want that, but the doctors say we need to be patient." As she turned to leave, a sudden resolve crystallized within me. I couldn't confront her now, not without more evidence. But I also couldn't let her and Alex continue their charade unchallenged. "Emily," I called out, causing her to pause at the door, "I'll be staying here to look after the kids. I'm sure you understand." Our eyes locked, an unspoken battle of wills. Finally, she nodded. "Of course, that's very kind of you." As her car pulled away, I sank onto the couch, the weight of my discoveries pressing down on me. I knew what I had to do next, but the path ahead was fraught with danger and uncertainty. With trembling fingers, I dialed a number I never thought I'd use. "Detective Johnson, it's Clara Lawson. I need to report a possible attempted murder." The days blurred together as I settled into a routine at Peter's house, caring for my niece and nephew while juggling hospital visits and clandestine meetings with Detective Johnson. The kids, Lily and Max, were a welcome distraction from the turmoil in my life, their innocence a stark contrast to the web of lies I was unraveling. One afternoon, as I helped Lily with her homework, my phone buzzed with a text from the detective. "New information. Meet ASAP. My heart raced as I arranged for a neighbor to watch the kids. At the local diner, Detective Johnson slid a file across the table. "We've been looking into Emily's financials," he said in a low voice. "There's something you need to see." I flipped open the folder, my eyes widening at the contents. Bank statements showed large transfers from Emily's account to an offshore entity, starting just weeks before Peter's accident. "This doesn't prove anything," I whispered, though hope flared in my chest. The detective leaned in. "No, but it's suspicious. We're also looking into Alex's involvement. His alibi for the night of the accident is shaky at best." As I left the diner, my mind reeled with possibilities. I was so distracted that I almost missed the familiar car parked down the street, Alex's car. Anger and betrayal surged through me as I stormed over, rapping on the window. Alex jumped, then reluctantly rolled it down. "What are you doing here?" I demanded. He had the decency to look ashamed. I was worried about you, Clara. You haven't been returning my calls." "So you decided to stalk me instead?" Alex sighed. "I saw you with that man. Who is he?" I laughed bitterly. "Now you're concerned about who I'm meeting. That's rich coming from you." His face hardened. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means I know, Alex. About the affair, about the money. What I don't know is how deeply you're involved in what happened to Peter." The color drained from his face. "Clara, you've got it all wrong. Let me explain." But I was already walking away, my heart pounding. I couldn't bear to hear more lies. Back at Peter's house, I found Emily waiting on the porch, the kids playing in the yard. "We need to talk," she said, her voice tight. I steeled myself, gesturing for her to come inside. In the kitchen, Emily paced nervously. "I know you've been digging," she began, "but you don't understand the whole picture." I crossed my arms. "Then enlighten me." Emily took a deep breath. "Peter and our marriage wasn't what it seemed. He had debts, Clara, dangerous ones. The money you found? It was to pay them off, to keep us safe." I stared at her, disbelief warring with a flicker of doubt. "And the affair with Alex?" She flinched. "A mistake, one I deeply regret, but it has nothing to do with what happened to Peter." "So you expect me to believe it's all just a coincidence? The affair, the money, Peter's accident?" Emily's filled with tears. "I know how it looks, but I swear, I had nothing to do with Peter's fall. I loved him, despite everything." As she spoke, I noticed something poking out of her purse, the corner of what looked like the lockbox I'd found in the attic. In that moment, everything crystallized. Emily wasn't here to explain. She was here to cover her tracks. "Get out," I said, my voice shaking with fury. Emily blinked, taken aback. "Clara, please. Get out now, or I swear I'll call the police this instant." She hesitated, then grabbed her purse and fled. As the door slammed behind her, I sank to the floor, overwhelmed by the weight of betrayal and lies. My phone buzzed. Another text from Detective Johnson. "Breakthrough in the case. Need to meet immediately." I stared at the message, knowing that my next move would change everything. The truth was within reach, but at what cost? With trembling fingers, I typed my reply. "I'm ready. Let's end this." As I hit send, I knew there was no turning back. Whatever came next, I was prepared to face it head-on, for Peter, for the kids, and for the truth that had eluded us for far too long. The world seemed to spin around me as I sat in Detective Johnson's office, staring at the evidence laid out before us. Photos, financial records, and witness statements painted a damning picture of Emily and Alex's involvement in Peter's accident. "We have enough to bring them in for questioning," Johnson said, his voice grave. "But we need your statement to tie it all together." I nodded, my throat tight. "I'm ready." As I recounted everything I'd discovered, from the mysterious note to the hidden lockbox, I felt a strange mix of relief and dread. The truth was finally coming to light, but at what cost to my family? Just as I finished my statement, my phone buzzed. It was a text from the hospital. "Peter's showing signs of waking up. Come immediately." My heart leapt. "I have to go," I told Johnson, already halfway out the door. At the hospital, I found my mother, Linda, already there, her face etched with worry and hope. "Clara, thank goodness you're here," she said, pulling me into a tight hug. We watched through the window as doctors swarmed around Peter's bed. His fingers twitched, then his eyelids fluttered. It was happening. He was waking up. As we waited anxiously, I filled Mom in on everything that had happened. Her face paled, then hardened with resolve. "Oh, Clara, she said, squeezing my hand. "You've been carrying this burden alone for too long, but not anymore. We'll face this together." Her words washed over me like a balm, easing some of the loneliness I'd been feeling. But our moment of connection was shattered by the arrival of Emily and Alex, bursting into the waiting room. "What's going on?" Emily demanded, her eyes darting between us and Peter's room. Before I could respond, Detective Johnson appeared behind them, flanked by 2 uniformed officers. "Emily Lawson, Alexander Lawson, you're under arrest for the attempted murder of Peter Lawson and conspiracy to commit insurance fraud." The next few minutes were chaos. Emily screamed denials while Alex went pale and silent. As the officers led them away, Emily's eyes locked on mine, filled with a mixture of hatred and fear. "This isn't over, Clara," she hissed. "You have no idea what you've done." I stood my ground, Mom's hand firm in mine. "No, Emily, you have no idea what you've done. To this family, to Peter, to those kids." As they disappeared down the hallway, a doctor emerged from Peter's room. "He's awake and asking for Clara." With shaking legs, I entered the room. Peter's eyes were open, though unfocused. When he saw me, a weak smile crossed his face. "Clara," he whispered, "you found it." I leaned in close. "Found what, Pete?" His voice was barely audible. "The truth. In the attic. But there's more. Danger." Before he could finish, his eyes rolled back and the monitors started blaring. Doctors and nurses rushed in, pushing me aside as they worked to stabilize him. I stumbled back into the hallway, my mind reeling. What more could there be? What danger was Peter trying to warn me about? Mom was there, steadying me. "What happened? What did he say?" I opened my mouth to respond, but movement at the end of the hall caught my eye. A figure in a hoodie was watching us, their face hidden in shadow. As our eyes met, they turned and ran. Without thinking, I took off after them, ignoring Mom's calls. I chased the figure down flights of stairs and out into the parking lot, my heart pounding. Just as I thought I'd lost them, a hand grabbed my arm, yanking me behind a parked van. I found myself face to face with a woman I'd never seen before, her eyes wild with fear. "Are you Clara?" she asked urgently. I nodded, too out of breath to speak. "Listen carefully," she said, glancing around nervously. "Emily and Alex aren't working alone. There's a bigger conspiracy at play, and you're in danger. We don't have much time." As she spoke, I saw a black SUV pull into the lot, its tinted windows hiding the occupants. The woman's grip on my arm tightened. "You have a choice to make, Clara. Run now and stay safe, or dive deeper and risk everything to uncover the whole truth. What's it going to be?" My heart pounded as I made my split-second decision. "I'm in. Tell me everything." The woman, who introduced herself as Sarah, quickly ushered me into her car. As we sped away from the hospital, she filled me in on a conspiracy that made my head spin. Emily and Alex were just pawns in a larger game involving corporate espionage and money laundering. Peter had stumbled upon evidence that could bring down an entire criminal network. "That's why they tried to silence him," Sarah explained. "And now they're after you." We arrived at a safe house where Sarah showed me files that corroborated her story. My mind reeled as I recognized names of family, friends, and business associates entangled in this web of deceit. Just then, my phone rang. It was Mom. "Clara, where are you? Emily's been released on bail and she's here at the house. She's demanding to see you." My blood ran cold. "Mom, listen carefully. You need to get out of there now. Go to Aunt Marge's and wait for my call." "Clara, what's going on? You're scaring me." "Please, Mom, trust me. I'll explain everything soon." After ensuring Mom was safe, Sarah and I formulated a plan. We needed to retrieve the final piece of evidence from Peter's attic. Evidence he had hinted at before losing consciousness again. As we approached Peter's house, I saw Emily's car in the driveway. Sarah handed me a small recording device. "Be careful. Get her to talk, but don't let on what you know." With trembling hands, I entered the house. Emily was in the living room, pacing like a caged animal. When she saw me, her eyes flashed with a mixture of relief and anger. "Clara, thank God, you have to help me. These accusations are insane. You know I would never hurt Peter." I steeled myself, remembering Sarah's advice. "Then explain the money transfers, Emily. Explain the affair with Alex." Her face crumpled. "It's not what you think. We were being blackmailed. There are people, powerful people, who—" Suddenly the front door burst open. Alex stormed in, his face a mask of fury. "Emily, shut up. You have no idea what you're dealing with. I backed away, my heart racing. "Alex, what are you doing here?" His eyes darted between Emily and me. "Cleaning up this mess. I'm sorry, Clara, but you've left me no choice." As he reached into his jacket, I saw the glint of a gun. Time seemed to slow down. I lunged for the nearest object, a heavy vase, and hurled it at him. The gun went off, the bullet splintering the wood beside my head. Emily screamed, diving for cover. I scrambled towards the stairs, Alex's footsteps thundering behind me. I reached the attic door, fumbling with the lock as another shot rang out. Finally inside, I frantically searched for Peter's hidden evidence. Where was it? The sound of Alex ascending the stairs spurred me on. Just as my hand closed around a small USB drive tucked behind a loose floorboard, the attic door flew open. Alex stood there, gun trained on me, his eyes cold. "Hand it over, Clara. Now." I clutched the drive to my chest. "Why, Alex? How could you be involved in this?" His laugh was hollow. "You have no idea how deep this goes. The money, the power, it's beyond anything you can imagine." As he stepped closer, I heard sirens in the distance. Alex's head whipped towards the sound, momentarily distracted. It was now or never. I charged at him, catching him off guard. We grappled for the gun, our struggle bringing us dangerously close to the attic window. With a final, desperate shove, I felt Alex lose his balance. Time seemed to stand still as I watched him fall, his eyes wide with shock. The sickening thud that followed would haunt me forever. Shaking uncontrollably, I made my way downstairs to find Sarah and the police bursting in. Emily was nowhere to be seen. As the officers swarmed the house, Sarah approached me. "It's over, Clara. You did it." But as I handed over the USB drive, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was far from over. The cost had been too high, the revelations too earth-shattering. As I watched the chaos unfold around me, one question burned in my mind. Where do we go from here? The courtroom buzzed with tension as I took the stand, my mother's encouraging nod from the gallery steeling my resolve. This was it, the moment of truth that would expose the web of lies and deceit that had nearly destroyed our family. As the prosecutor guided me through my testimony, I recounted every shocking detail. The affair, the conspiracy, the attempt on Peter's life. With each revelation, I watched Emily's face contort with a mixture of rage and desperation. "And what did you find on the USB drive, Miss Lawson?" the prosecutor asked. I took a deep breath. "Financial records proving that Emily and Alex were part of a larger criminal organization. They were laundering money through Peter's company, and when he discovered it, they tried to silence him." Emily leapt to her feet. "She's lying. Clara's always been jealous of me, of my relationship with Peter." The judge called for order as Emily's outburst echoed through the courtroom. As she was restrained, our eyes met. In that moment, I saw not just anger, but fear. The fear of a cornered animal. After I stepped down, Mom took the stand. Her testimony about the changes she'd observed in Peter and Emily's relationship and the suspicious behavior leading up to the accident further solidified our case. As the trial concluded and we awaited the verdict, Mom squeezed my hand. "No matter what happens, Clara, I'm proud of you. We've done the right thing." The jury's decision was swift and unanimous, guilty on all counts. As Emily was led away, her mask of innocence finally crumbled. "You'll regret this, Clara," she screamed. "You have no idea what you've done." In the days that followed, the full extent of the conspiracy came to light. Respected community members were arrested, businesses were shuttered, and our quiet town was left reeling from the scandal. Through it all, Mom and I stood strong, supporting each other and helping Peter through his recovery. His memory of the accident was still hazy, but with each passing day, he grew stronger. One evening as we sat on the porch of our childhood home, Peter turned to me. "Clara, I can't thank you enough for what you've done. You saved my life, and you saved our family." I smiled, feeling a weight lift from my shoulders. "We saved each other, Pete. That's what family does." Mom joined us carrying a tray of lemonade. "My brave children," she said, her eyes misty. "I always knew you were fighters, but you've shown more strength than I ever imagined." As we sat there watching the sunset, I reflected on the tumultuous journey we'd been through. The pain, the betrayal, the fear, it had all led to this moment of peace and unity. "What happens now?" Peter asked, voicing the question we'd all been pondering. I took a sip of lemonade, considering. "We rebuild, we heal, and we move forward together." Mom nodded, her face resolute. and we remember the lessons we've learned. Trust your instincts, stand up for what's right, and never underestimate the power of family. In that moment, I felt a profound sense of gratitude. Despite everything we'd been through, our family had emerged stronger, our bonds unbreakable. As the stars began to twinkle in the twilight sky, I made a silent vow. We would face whatever challenges came our way with the same courage and determination that had brought us through this ordeal. The road ahead might be uncertain, but one thing was clear. Together, we could weather any storm. To family, I said, raising my glass. To family? Mom and Peter echoed, their voices filled with love and hope. As we clinked our glasses together, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. The secrets were out, the truth had prevailed, and our family stood united. Whatever the future held, we would face it head-on, stronger and wiser than ever before. The end of this chapter marked not just the conclusion of a harrowing ordeal, but the beginning of a new journey, one of healing, growth, and unshakable family bonds. As the night deepened around us, I knew that the strength we'd found in each other would guide us through whatever lay ahead. Our family's story was far from over. It was just beginning anew. Decking out this room will be such a thrill, Mason chimed as he declared, staking his claim. You try to fuss, Ma, and you'll see me leaving you to fend for yourself. The cutting edge to his words caught me off guard. I had barely closed the front door of my modest home, where memories with my late husband lingered, when Mason began barking orders. Amber, his wife, stood in the corner, scrolling through her phone, barely acknowledging me. Give it a rest, Amber. We're here now. Better make the best of it, Mason said, glancing in her direction. Amber sighed, putting her phone away. I shuffled into the living room, feeling the weight of my decision. My husband had passed away just a year ago, and now I'd agreed to let Mason and Amber move in. I expected support, companionship. I didn't expect this hostility. Nora, where do you keep the good plates? Amber asked wearily, walking into the kitchen. In the cabinet above the sink, I replied, trying to keep a positive tone. Why do you need them right now? Just checking. You know, we have friends over sometimes. Don't want them eating off these cheap ones, she said dismissively, picking up one of the plates from the drying rack and looking at it critically. I bit my tongue. I wanted to protest, but Mason gave me a look that froze the words in my throat. Amber, just leave it. We'll buy new plates if we need to, Mason said, as if I wasn't even there. The house might have been small, but it was filled with memories. Pictures of family holidays adorned the walls. I tried to remind myself that I had made this choice for the sake of family, but something in Mason's tone made me uneasy. It was late afternoon, and the sunlight streamed through the windows, casting long shadows on the worn carpet. I eyed the dining area, already imagining the arguments yet to come. My stomach turned at the thought. Mason, can we talk for a moment? I asked, trying to sound assertive. Sure, Ma. What's up? He responded with a fake warmth, following me into the hallway. Why the rush to claim your room? You said you needed help, and I let you move in. Show a little respect, please, I said, trying to maintain eye contact. He folded his arms, leaning against the wall. Respect? Ma, we're here to help you out, too. Don't forget that. I nodded, unwilling to argue further. I retreated to my bedroom seat, the only place where I felt I still had control. As I sat on the edge of my bed, I looked at the framed photo of my husband on the nightstand. His kind eyes seemed to offer me strength. Amber's voice floated down the hallway, interrupting my thoughts. Mason, how about we order in tonight? I'm not in the mood to cook. Fine by me, Mason replied, his voice indifferent. I felt a mixture of frustration and sadness. I hadn't anticipated how disruptive their presence would be. A few hours later, the house was filled with the aroma of takeout. I joined them at the table, where Mason and Amber were already eating. Nora, do you want some? Amber asked, not looking up from her food. Sure, I responded, sitting down. So, Ma, any interesting plans for tomorrow? Mason asked between bites. I was thinking of visiting the market, stock up on some fresh produce, I said, hoping he might engage in a real conversation. Amber, he interrupted, clearly not paying attention to me. We should go check out that furniture store you mentioned. Yes, we need to update a few things around here, Amber said excitedly. I sighed, putting down my fork. I'd appreciate if we could discuss changes before jumping into them. Ma, we'll take care of it, don't worry, Mason said dismissively, already looking back at his phone. I felt an unsettling chill. My home, once filled with love, now felt alien. This wasn't the beginning I had hoped for. The next few days passed in a blur of tension and biting comments. Every time Amber opened her mouth, it seemed to be to criticize or demand something new. Any attempt to create harmony was met with sneers and dismissive gestures. One evening, as I sorted through some old papers at the dining table, Mason walked in, rifling through the mail. "Bills, bills, and more bills. Do you ever not get these, Ma?" he muttered loudly. "They come with living in the house, Mason," I said patiently. "It's normal." "Well, you should try and cut down on your expenses. This is starting to get out of hand," he said, tossing the mail onto the table. His tone was sharp, lacking any hint of compassion. From the living room, Amber's voice carried through. "Mason, did you forget about tomorrow's payments? You promised to handle it." Yeah, I know," he called back. "What payments are those, Mason?" I asked, raising an eyebrow. "Nothing you need to worry about, Ma," he said dismissively. I glanced over the documents he'd thrown. My heart sank seeing how much more they'd spent than I realized. "Mason, could you contribute a bit to the household? Money is tight," I asked, my tone hopeful. Mason didn't even look up. Sorry, slipped my mind. I'll get on it next time," he said offhandedly. Amber walked in, her face twisted in disdain. "Honestly, this place is a nightmare. So old-fashioned and depressing. How did you ever live here, Nora?" I bit back a retort and offered a thin smile. "It's home, Amber. It has history." "Well, history doesn't pay the bills, now does it?" she snapped, rolling her eyes. She joined Mason, who was now scrolling through his phone. I sighed and returned to my papers. Something caught my eye, an unpaid bill that was unusually high. I made a mental note to investigate it further. I couldn't shake the feeling something was wrong. The next day, curiosity got the best of me. I quietly checked Mason's office while they were out. I found unopened bills and receipts everywhere, and many were marked with overdue notices. My pulse quickened. This mess had to be cleaned up, but more urgently, I needed answers. Later that evening, I confronted Mason and Amber when they returned. "Mason, we need to talk about these overdue bills," I said, holding up the pile of papers. His face hardened. "Ma, stay out of my business. We're handling it." "Handling it? This affects all of us," I retorted, my frustration bubbling over. Amber chimed in, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "Maybe if you didn't spend on useless things, we wouldn't have a problem." "Useless? Everything I buy is for the house," I said, feeling anger rise. "Sure, keep telling yourself that," Amber said, tossing her hair back. I took a deep breath. "Mason, something isn't adding up. I need to know what's going on," I said more calmly. "Drop it, Ma," Mason said sternly. I said we'll take care of it. That night, I lay in bed wide awake. Their behavior, the financial discrepancies, it all felt wrong. I had to dig deeper. This had become more than just a family issue. It was a question of survival. Morning arrived, and as they left for their activities, I decided to visit Mason's workplace, a small tech startup. I needed to understand more. The office was a short drive away. When I walked in, Emily Harper, a young employee, greeted me. "Hi, can I help you?" she asked with a friendly smile. "I'm Nora, Mason's mom. Just thought I'd drop by and say hi." Emily's smile faded slightly. "Oh, Mason didn't mention you'd be coming. He's out right now." "I see. How is he doing here?" I asked, trying to sound casual. She hesitated. "He's been having some trouble. Deadlines, funds. He's under a lot of stress." I nodded, feeling a knot tighten in my stomach. "Thank you, Emily." Leaving the office, one thing was clear. Mason and Amber were hiding something. I was determined to find out what, no matter the cost. "Mason, the internet is down again," Amber yelled from the living room. "Can't you fix it?" There was a crash as Mason kicked a chair. "I'll deal with it later, Amber." He snapped. He stormed past me, not bothering to even look in my direction. Mornings had become a battleground. Amber's tantrums and Mason's temper made my once peaceful home feel like a war zone. It was clear they were frustrated, but their anger seemed to land squarely on me. I couldn't keep dealing with the hostility without some sort of escape, so I found a job at a local art supply store. The manager, Mrs. Harper, welcomed me with open arms. It felt good to be doing something useful for myself. One afternoon, while sorting brushes and paints, Mrs. Harper approached me. "Nora, would you like to join our painting class this evening?" I hesitated. "I'm not sure if I'm any good." She smiled warmly. Everyone starts somewhere, plus, we could use an extra set of hands. That evening, I joined the class, and for the first time in a while, I felt genuinely at peace. I may not have been very skilled, but losing myself in the strokes of the brush was therapeutic. Returning home later than usual, I walked in to find Mason and Amber arguing. "Just do something useful for once," Mason shouted. "Useful? I'm doing everything while your mother is out playing with paints," Amber retorted. "I'm back," I said softly, hoping to diffuse the tension. Amber glared at me. "Perfect timing. We're out of groceries. Why don't you make yourself useful, Nora?" I felt a wave of anger rise but held it back. "I'll take care of it in the morning," I said calmly. "Make sure you do," Amber muttered. The next day, I did the shopping, making sure to get exactly what they liked, to avoid more complaints. At the checkout, a canvas caught my eye. I decided to buy it, hoping to continue painting at home. When I got back, Amber was sprawled on the couch. "About time," she said as I walked in with the bags. I ignored her, placing the groceries on the counter. Later, as I set up my canvas in the spare bedroom, Mason walked in. "What is this?" he demanded, looking at the canvas. "It's for painting," I said, trying to stay composed. "With what money, Ma? Don't you get it?" "We're struggling to keep this place afloat," he yelled. "I bought it with my own earnings from the store," I said firmly. Mason shook his head and walked out, mumbling something under his breath that I didn't catch. Over the next few weeks, painting became my refuge. My work at the store and the joy of painting helped balance the growing tension at home. One evening, Mrs. Harper approached me again. "Nora, I've seen your paintings. They're quite good. Have you thought about selling them?" she asked. I was stunned. "I haven't. Do you really think they're worth selling?" "Yes, I do. We can start displaying them here at the store," she suggested. I nodded, feeling a spark of hope. Maybe this could be a way out of the bleakness at home. That night, as I served dinner, Amber sniped, "Honestly, you're just a burden to everyone around, as an old woman who's of no use." I stopped, feeling the sting of her words, but I didn't respond. Instead, I went to my room, picked up my brush, and started painting. For every insult, I would channel it into my art. Soon, my paintings attracted attention. I made my first sale, then another. Each piece sold brought me a little more financial freedom and emotional strength. In secret, I started setting aside money, planning an escape if things worsened. Amber and Mason continued their rampage of entitlement. But now, I had something they couldn't touch, a sense of purpose and a path forward. And with every stroke of my brush, my resolve grew stronger. Selling one painting after another, I finally felt like I was contributing. But I kept my success a secret from Mason and Amber, knowing it would only cause more tension. The resentment in the house was growing thicker every day. One evening, while Amber was out, I found myself sitting with Mason over a rare shared meal. The silence was heavy, but I decided to break it. "Mason, I've noticed financial discrepancies. Something doesn't add up," I said cautiously. Mason stiffened. "I told you, I'm handling it. Stay out of it, Ma." "But it's affecting all of us. You're not contributing, and Amber seems more interested in spending than saving," I pushed, my voice steady. He slammed his fork down. "I said I'm handling it." I dropped the subject, knowing I wouldn't get anywhere with him tonight. Later, as I cleaned up, I overheard a phone conversation from Mason's office that made my blood go cold. "I've transferred the funds. Just make sure the company doesn't catch on," Mason whispered urgently. Realizing the gravity of his words, I quietly moved away. I needed proof. Over the next week, I carefully recorded any conversations that hinted at their misdeeds, using my phone's recording feature. Amber was no better. She had brought home a stack of expensive clothing and jewelry. In a moment of carelessness, she'd left receipts lying around that showed she'd used funds from my account. I decided to confront her. "Amber, these expenditures on my account are unacceptable. How could you?" She looked at me with cold disdain. "Oh, Nora, stop acting like it's a big deal. I'll pay it back." "This is theft, Amber. I want the money back now," I insisted. She smirked. "What are you going to do about it, old woman?" My anger boiled over. This isn't over. Later that day, I took my recordings and receipts to a lawyer. The evidence was clear, and I was advised to start taking steps to secure my position. Secretly, I found a modest house to buy with the money I had saved from my paintings. It was small, but it was mine. The keys to the new house felt heavy in my pocket, a double-edged sword of freedom and fear. I still needed more proof to protect myself fully. That evening, Mason and Amber were out, and I seized the opportunity to dig deeper into Mason's office. Folders, emails, and files, everything pointed to him siphoning company funds. My chest tightened, realizing the depth of their betrayal. The next morning at breakfast, Amber looked over with a sneer. "And what do you plan to do with your pathetic little paintings, Nora? Buy yourself a coffin." I shot back, "I'm making enough to move out soon. You and Mason will have to fend for yourselves." Mason walked into the kitchen, hearing my last words. "What's this about moving out?" "I've had enough. You've both been deceitful and abusive. I've found a new place," I said with a newfound firmness. Mason's face hardened. "You think you're just going to leave us? We're your family." "Family? You've done nothing but take advantage of me," I countered, my voice shaking but strong. Amber's laughter was cold. "Good luck surviving on your own. You'll come crawling back." "We'll see about that," I replied, holding her gaze. As days went by, I finalized my purchase, ensuring everything was in order to move quickly. But I wasn't just leaving. I was setting the stage to expose them. One evening, I gathered all the evidence, Amber's fraudulent activities and Mason's misappropriation of company funds. I waited until they were both home. "Mason, Amber, we need to talk," I said tersely, holding up the folder of evidence. Amber rolled her eyes. "Another one of your lectures?" Mason's eyes narrowed. "What is it now?" I opened the folder and laid the documents on the table. "This is proof that you've both been stealing and cheating." Their faces drained of color. "Tomorrow I'm showing these to the authorities. My new house is ready, and you're not coming with me," I declared, my voice steady and strong. Their protests and threats echoed as I walked away, but I felt a weight lifted from my shoulders. This was just the beginning of my fight for justice, and I was ready. I spent the next few days preparing for the move, making sure everything was in place at the new house. I didn't tell Mason and Amber anything more about my plans, keeping my intentions under wraps. One morning, I packed the last of my belongings and left a note behind. It simply read, "Goodbye and good luck." I felt a mixture of relief and nervousness as I closed the door behind me. This was it, my new beginning. Arriving at my new house, I took a deep breath. It was smaller and simpler than my old home, but it felt like a sanctuary. I set up my art supplies in a corner of the living room, ready to dive into my painting again. A few hours later, there was a frantic knock at the door. I opened it to find Mason and Amber standing there, faces flushed with anger and panic. "You can't just leave. We need you," Mason shouted, his voice breaking. "This house is mine, and mine alone," I declared with a firmness that brooked no argument. Amber pushed past Mason, her eyes wild. "What are we supposed to do now? You can't abandon us," she spat. "I haven't abandoned you," I replied calmly. "You abandoned your responsibilities and proved you couldn't be trusted." Mason stepped forward, trying a different approach. "Please, Ma, let's just talk this through. We can work something out." "No, Mason. I'm done talking. I found out about the company funds you've been misappropriating," I said, watching his face pale. He started to bluster. "You don't understand. It's not what it looks like." "I understand perfectly," I interrupted. "And Amber, you've been draining my accounts for your own luxuries." Amber scoffed, crossing her arms. "You really think you can survive without us?" I stepped back, resolving to make my final stand. "I am surviving without you. You underestimated me, and now you're going to face the consequences." With that, I shut the door on their stunned faces, locking it behind me. I heard them shout and pound on the door, but I ignored them. This was my new chapter, and they were no longer a part of it. The next day, I contacted the authorities and provided all the evidence I had gathered. It wasn't just about my money, it was about justice and finally standing up for myself. Mason and Amber showed up at my door once more, this time pleading and promising to change. "Please, Ma, we're sorry. Just give us another chance," Mason begged. Amber nodded, tears streaming down her face. "We need you. We can't do this without you." I shook my head, feeling a strange sense of calm. "It's too late. You've already shown me who you are, and I deserve better." They left, defeated and broken. As they walked away, I felt a wave of emotions, relief, sadness, but more than anything, empowerment. In the weeks that followed, I focused on settling into my new life. My art continued to flourish, bringing in enough to comfortably support myself, Each day I felt stronger and more independent. Mason and Amber's betrayals were reported to the authorities, and they faced the consequences of their actions. It wasn't an easy battle, but it was one I was determined to see through. One evening, as I painted in the quiet of my new home, I thought about the journey that had brought me here. I had turned pain into purpose, anger into action, and for the first time in a long time, I felt a profound sense of peace. A knock on the door startled me out of my peaceful morning routine. I opened it to see Mason, looking more haggard than ever. He wasted no time pushing his way inside, eyes wild with desperation. "What do you want, Mason?" I asked, keeping my voice steady. "We need to talk, Ma. You can't keep doing this to us," he pleaded, his tone urgent. Amber hovered near the door, her face etched with worry and anger. She stomped into the room, snapping, "You think you can ruin our lives and just walk away?" I walked to the kitchen counter, putting some distance between us. "You ruined your own lives with your choices. I'm done suffering for them." Mason's composure cracked. "This is all a misunderstanding. We're not the villains here." I couldn't help but laugh bitterly. "Not the villains? You stole from me and your company, lied and manipulated. How are you the victim?" Amber's face twisted horrifically. "We took what we deserved. You owe us." "I owe you? Look around, Amber. I worked hard for this house, my peace. You belittled and exploited me. I owe you nothing." Mason stepped closer, trying another tactic. "Please, Ma, we can fix this. Just drop the charges and we'll pay you back." "Drop the charges? This is bigger than repaying me. It's about accountability. You think you can swindle your way out of everything?" I said, shaking my head. Amber's rage boiled over. "You miserable, ungrateful hag. We did everything for you, and this is how you repay us?" "Everything for me?" I shot back. "You mean everything to benefit yourselves. I've seen your true colors. Now it's time for you to face the consequences." Mason collapsed onto the couch, holding his head in his hands. "Please, Ma, don't do this. We need help. We can't make it without you." And I needed respect, dignity, and honesty. But you didn't think of that, did you? I sighed, feeling the weight of the years of manipulation lift. At that moment, the doorbell rang again. I opened it to find 2 police officers standing there. "Are you Nora Collins?" one of them asked. "Yes, I am," I replied, stepping aside to let them in. Amber's eyes widened in horror. "No, this can't be happening. You can't let them take us." The officers stepped forward, addressing Mason and Amber. "Mason Collins, Amber Davis, you are under arrest for fraud and embezzlement." Mason's face turned a ghostly white. "Ma, do something! Talk to them," he begged as he was handcuffed. Amber screamed, thrashing as they restrained her. "You can't do this! We're family!" I watched silently as the officers led them away, their protests echoing down the hallway. It was a heartbreaking sight, yet I felt a sense of justice being served. Once they were gone, the quiet of the house felt deafening. I walked back to my easel, picking up a brush with trembling hands. Dipping it into the paint, I tried to steady myself through the familiar motion. As I worked, I reflected on the confrontation. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about reclaiming my life and ensuring that Mason and Amber faced the consequences of their actions. Mrs. Harper had been a wonderful support through all this, offering advice and encouragement as I balanced my work at the store and the challenges at home. When I next saw her, I shared what had happened. "Nora, you did the right thing. Sometimes the hardest choices lead to the most important changes," she said kindly. I nodded. "I hope so. For now, I just want to move forward." And so I did. Each day became a step toward healing, creating new routines in my quiet, comforting home. Though the scars remained, I knew I had emerged stronger and more self-assured than I ever thought possible. The reality of Mason and Amber's arrest didn't truly sink in until I visited the police station to finalize my statement. As I walked through the cold, sterile corridors, I felt a mixture of apprehension and resolve. This was it, the point of no return. An officer led me to an interview room. "Miss Collins, we'll need you to recount everything again for the record," he said, his tone professional yet compassionate. I took a deep breath and began, detailing the lies, the theft, the manipulations. For the first time, I laid everything bare without fear. My voice remained steady as I recounted each betrayal, each moment of pain, knowing this was a necessary step for justice. When I finished, the officer nodded. "Thank you, Miss Collins. Your courage in coming forward is commendable. As I stepped out of the station, I noticed a familiar face in the waiting area. It was Emily Harper, Mrs. Harper's daughter. She stood up and approached me. "Nora, I heard what happened. I'm so sorry you had to go through all this," she said softly. "Thank you, Emily. It's been tough, but it needed to be done," I replied. "Mom wanted me to check in on you. She's been worried," Emily added. "Tell her I appreciate it, and I'll drop by the store soon," I said, grateful for the support. That evening, I allowed myself a moment of reflection. The house was quiet, almost peaceful. I picked up my phone and called Mrs. Harper. "Nora, how are you holding up?" her warm voice asked. "I'm okay, Mrs. Harper. Mason and Amber are facing their consequences," I said, feeling a strange mix of relief and sadness. "You did the right thing. You deserve peace, Nora," she reassured me. "Thank you," I whispered, grateful for her kindness. The next few days were filled with legal proceedings and meetings with lawyers. I attended court sessions, where Mason and Amber's crimes were laid bare for all to see. They tried to plead for leniency, but the evidence was overwhelming. After one particularly grueling session, Mason approached me in the hallway. His eyes were red, and he looked defeated. "Ma, please, can't you help us? We were wrong, but we don't deserve this," he begged. I met his gaze, feeling a pang of sorrow, but knowing I had to stand firm. "Mason, you made your choices. Now you have to face the consequences. There's nothing more I can do." Amber stood behind him, her defiance crumbling into desperation. "Nora, please, we're family." "Family doesn't do what you did. I can't help you anymore," I said quietly. As they were led away, I felt a sense of closure. This chapter of my life was ending, but it was paving the way for a new beginning. Returning home, I focused on my art. Each brushstroke was a step toward healing, each painting a testament to my resilience. The small gallery I'd created in my living room began to grow, each piece reflecting the journey I had undertaken. One afternoon, Mrs. Harper visited. She walked through my makeshift gallery, admiring the paintings. "These are beautiful, Nora. You've come such a long way," she said, her eyes filled with admiration. "Thank you. It's been a lifeline," I replied, feeling a swell of pride. We sat down with cups of tea, the conversation turning to the future. "What's next for you, Nora?" Mrs. Harper asked. "I think I'll keep painting, maybe even start displaying them more widely. And I want to focus on finding peace," I said, feeling hopeful. "You have a gift, Nora. Share it with the world. And remember, you're stronger than you think," she said, giving my hand a reassuring squeeze. As she left, I looked around my home, filled with the artwork that had become a symbol of my journey. The past was behind me, and I was ready for whatever the future held. I had faced the darkness, and now it was time to embrace the light. Life had a new rhythm, a steadier one. The court proceedings were behind me, and both Mason and Amber were serving their sentences. There was a strange peace in the aftermath, a calm I hadn't felt in years. My little house had become my sanctuary. I spent my days painting and working part-time at the art supply store. Mrs. Harper continued to be a wonderful support, often stopping by to check on me and discuss new art supplies or techniques. One late afternoon, as I was adding the finishing touches to a vibrant landscape, the doorbell rang. I opened it to find Emily Harper holding a beautifully wrapped gift. "Hi, Nora. Mom and I wanted to give you this," she said, handing me the parcel. "What's this?" I asked, curious. "Just open it," Emily urged, smiling warmly. I untied the ribbon and lifted the lid to reveal an exquisite set of oil paints and brushes. Tears welled up in my eyes. "Thank you, Emily. Please tell your mom I'm so grateful." "Will do. We're both so proud of how far you've come," she said, giving me a hug before leaving. As I set up the new paints, my phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize. Answering, I heard a familiar voice. "Nora, it's Jane from the gallery downtown." Jane Taylor ran one of the local galleries and had expressed interest in my art before. "Hi, Jane. What can I do for you? I've been following your work, and I'd love to feature your paintings in an upcoming exhibit. What do you think?" she asked, excitement clear in her voice. I'd be honored," I stammered, overwhelmed by the offer. "Great. We'll finalize details soon. Prepare to showcase your talent, Nora," she said before ending the call. Hanging up, a grin spread across my face. It felt like a new chapter was opening, one where my art would finally receive the recognition it deserved. A week later, I stood in the center of the gallery, surrounded by my paintings. Jane had done a fantastic job arranging the exhibit, giving each piece the space it needed to shine. Mrs. Harper and Emily arrived early to support me. "Nora, these are amazing!" Mrs. Harper exclaimed, looking around with admiration. "Thanks to your encouragement," I replied, feeling a swell of gratitude. Throughout the evening, people approached me, praising my work and asking about my journey. It was a surreal experience, sharing the story of how painting had become my refuge and my strength. As the night drew to a close, I found myself alone with Jane. "Your work resonates with so many people, Nora. You have a real gift," she said, sincerity in her eyes. "Thank you, Jane. It means the world to me," I replied, feeling a sense of accomplishment. Returning home, my heart felt light. The once heavy burden of my past had lifted, replaced by hope and new possibilities. The future seemed bright, promising new opportunities and continued growth. In the following weeks, my paintings gained popularity. I received commissions and invitations to display my work in other galleries. Each new project was a step toward solidifying my identity as an artist. One sunny afternoon, while relaxing in my garden, Mrs. Harper visited with exciting news. "Nora, the local art school wants you to teach a class. Interested?" "Teaching? I've never considered that," I replied, intrigued. "They think you'd be perfect. Sharing your techniques and experiences could inspire others," Mrs. Harper encouraged. The idea planted a seed of excitement. "All right, I'll give it a try. It sounds like a wonderful opportunity." As the days turned into weeks and months, my new life flourished. I balanced painting, teaching, and enjoying quiet moments in my garden. The scars of the past were still there, but they no longer defined me. They were part of my journey, a testament to my resilience. One evening, as the sun set, I reflected on everything I'd endured and accomplished. I felt gratitude for the strength I'd found and the new path I was forging. Life was a canvas, and I was painting it with vibrant, resilient strokes, each one a testament to my journey, my survival, and my new beginnings. I never expected my life to change so dramatically on a sunny Sunday afternoon. The annual family barbecue at my parents' sprawling backyard was in full swing, the air filled with the aroma of grilled burgers and the chatter of relatives catching up. "Megan, sweetheart, can you come here for a moment?" Mom called from the patio, her voice carrying a hint of something I couldn't quite place. I made my way through the crowd, balancing a plate of potato salad in one hand and my daughter's juice box in the other. "What's up, Mom?" Dad stood next to her, his usual jovial expression replaced by an uncharacteristically serious one. "We need to talk to you about something important," he said, gesturing towards the empty chairs. As I sat down, I caught sight of Peter across the yard. My best friend since college, he gave me a curious look, sensing the tension even from a distance. "Honey," Mom began, her fingers nervously twisting the napkin in her lap, "your father and I have been thinking about the future of the business." I nodded, unsure where this was going. The family hardware store had been a fixture in our small town for 3 generations. Dad cleared his throat. "We've decided it's time to start planning for retirement, and we want you to take over the business." The words hit me like a bucket of ice water. "What? Me?" I sputtered, nearly dropping my plate. "But I don't know anything about running a hardware store." "You're smart, Megan," Dad said firmly. "You've got a good head for numbers, and you know how to talk to people. We'll teach you everything else." I shook my head, feeling overwhelmed. "But what about Uncle Jim? Or Cousin Mark? They've both worked at the store for years." Mom reached out and squeezed my hand. "We've thought long and hard about this, sweetie. You're the right choice. We trust you to carry on the family legacy." As if on cue, Peter appeared at my side, concern etched on his face. "Everything okay here?" he asked, his eyes darting between me and my parents. "Peter," Dad exclaimed, his face brightening. "Perfect timing. We were just telling Megan about our decision to make her the successor to the family business." Peter's eyebrows shot up. "Wow, that's big news," he said, giving me a supportive smile. "Congratulations, Meg." I forced a weak smile in return, my mind racing. How could I possibly run a business and be a single mom? What about my job at the library? And what would the rest of the family say? As if reading my thoughts, Mom leaned in. "We know it's a lot to take in, honey, but we believe in you, and we'll be here to help every step of the way." I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. Can I have some time to think about it?" Dad nodded. Of course, but don't take too long. We'd like to start the transition soon. As they stood to rejoin the party, leaving me reeling from the news, I felt Peter's hand on my shoulder. Hey, he said softly, want to take a walk? Grateful for the escape, I nodded and followed him towards the old oak tree at the edge of the property. So, Peter said as we walked, future business mogul, huh? I let out a shaky laugh. God, Peter, what am I going to do? I can't run a business. I'm barely keeping it together as it is. He stopped and turned to face me, his expression serious. Megan, listen to me. You're one of the most capable people I know. If anyone can do this, it's you. I felt tears pricking at the corners of my eyes. But what about Emily? How can I be a good mom and run a business? Peter's voice was gentle but firm. The same way you've been an amazing mom while working at the library. You'll figure it out. And you won't be alone. I'll be here to help, whatever you need. As I looked into his eyes, I felt a flutter in my chest that had nothing to do with my newfound responsibilities. Before I could respond, a commotion from the patio caught our attention. Oh no, I groaned, recognizing the raised voices. Sounds like Uncle Jim just found out. Peter squeezed my hand. Ready to face the music? Taking a deep breath, I nodded. As I'll ever be. Together, we headed back towards the house, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The hardware store loomed before me, its faded sign a stark reminder of the responsibility now resting on my shoulders. I took a deep breath, clutching my coffee cup like a lifeline as I pushed open the door. Morning, Megan. Uncle Jim called from behind the counter, his smile not quite reaching his eyes. The tension from the family barbecue still lingered, thick as the dust on the shelves. Morning, Uncle Jim, I replied, forcing a cheerfulness I didn't feel. Ready to show me the ropes? He grunted, gesturing vaguely towards the back office. Your father's waiting for you. Good luck. As I made my way through the aisles, doubt gnawed at my insides. What did I know about inventory management or profit margins? I was a librarian, for heaven's sake. Dad looked up as I entered, his face lighting up. There's my girl. Ready to learn the family business? I nodded weakly, sinking into the chair across from him. For the next few hours, he walked me through spreadsheets, supplier contracts, and employee schedules. My head spun with information overload. Don't worry, sweetheart, Dad said, noticing my overwhelmed expression. You'll get the hang of it in no time. Just then, my phone buzzed. A text from Peter. How's it going, future CEO? Lunch later? I smiled, feeling a flutter of warmth. Peter's unwavering support had been my anchor these past few weeks. As I typed a quick reply, Dad cleared his throat. So you and Peter seem to be getting pretty close, he said, his tone casual but his eyes sharp. I felt my cheeks heat up. We're just friends, Dad. He raised an eyebrow. Uh-huh. Well, just remember mixing business and pleasure can be tricky, especially with his family's hotel empire. I frowned, caught off guard. What do you mean? Dad leaned back in his chair. I'm just saying, the Caldwells are big fish in a small pond. Peter's father has some aggressive business practices. I'd hate to see you get caught in the crossfire. Before I could respond, the office door burst open. Uncle Jim stood there, his face flushed. We've got a problem. The Caldwell Hotel just placed a massive order with our biggest competitor. We're going to lose half our commercial accounts. My stomach dropped. I looked at Dad, expecting him to take charge, but he just nodded at me. What do you think we should do, Megan? Panic rose in my throat. This was exactly what I'd been afraid of, being thrust into a situation I wasn't prepared for. But as I looked at the expectant faces of my father and uncle, I knew I had to step up. Okay, taking a deep breath. Let's call our supplier and see if we can negotiate better prices. Then we'll reach out to our commercial clients and offer them a loyalty discount. Uncle Jim nodded grudgingly. Not bad, kid. I'll make the calls. As he left, Dad squeezed my shoulder. See, you've got good instincts. You'll do just fine. I managed a weak smile, but inside my mind was racing. How could Peter's family do this to us? And what did it mean for my relationship with Peter? Later, as I sat across from Peter at our favorite diner, I couldn't shake the unease. He chatted animatedly about his day, but I barely heard him, lost in my own thoughts. Meg? Earth to Megan, Peter said, waving a hand in front of my face. You okay? I blinked, focusing on his concerned expression. Sorry, just a lot on my mind. Peter, did you know about your father's deal with our competitor? His face fell, guilt flashing in his eyes. I heard something about it. But Meg, you have to understand it's just business. My father... Just business? I interrupted, anger flaring. Peter, this could ruin my family's livelihood. He reached for my hand, but I pulled away. Megan, please, I'm caught in the middle here. My father's been pushing me to take on more responsibility at the hotel, but I don't want it to come between us. I stared at him, torn between my feelings for Peter and my loyalty to my family. I don't know if it's that simple anymore, I said softly. As I looked into Peter's pleading eyes, I realized that taking over the family business wasn't just about learning spreadsheets and inventory. It was about navigating a complex web of relationships and loyalties, and I wasn't sure if I was ready for that challenge. I stood in front of the mirror, smoothing down my dress for the 100th time. The thought of meeting Peter's parents made my stomach churn. After the fallout from the Caldwell Hotel's business move, I wasn't sure what to expect. "Mommy, you look pretty," Emily chirped from the doorway, her gap-toothed smile melting away some of my anxiety. I scooped her up, breathing in her comforting scent. "Thanks, sweetie. Now you be good for Grandma tonight, okay?" The doorbell rang, and my heart leaped into my throat. Peter stood there, looking dashing in a suit, a bouquet of flowers in his hand. "Meg, you look beautiful," he said, his eyes warm. "Ready to meet the parents?" I nodded, not trusting my voice. The drive to the Caldwell mansion was tense, filled with Peter's nervous chatter about his family's quirks. As we pulled up to the sprawling estate, my jaw dropped. "Peter, this is intimidating," he squeezed my hand. "They're just people, Meg. I promise they don't bite." The front door swung open before we could knock, revealing a petite woman with Peter's kind eyes. "You must be Megan," she exclaimed, pulling me into an unexpected hug. "I'm Caroline. Come in, come in." Peter's father, Robert, was waiting in the living room. He stood as we entered, his imposing figure softened by a genuine smile. "Welcome, Megan. We've heard so much about you." As we settled in for drinks, I braced myself for interrogation or thinly veiled contempt. Instead, I found myself drawn into a warm conversation about my daughter, my work at the library, and my newfound role at the family hardware store. "It's not easy taking over a family business," Robert said, his voice surprisingly gentle. "I remember when I first started at the hotel, scared out of my wits." I blinked, caught off guard by his candor. "Really? But you've been so successful," he chuckled. "Success doesn't come overnight, my dear. It takes hard work, determination, and a bit of luck." As the evening progressed, I found myself relaxing. Caroline regaled us with embarrassing stories from Peter's childhood, while Robert offered thoughtful advice on business management. During a lull in the conversation, I gathered my courage. "Mr. Caldwell, I have to ask about the deal with our competitor." Robert's expression turned serious. "Ah, yes, I owe you an apology, Megan. I didn't realize the impact it would have on your family's business. I've already spoken to my team about finding a way to make it right." I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. "Thank you, that means a lot." As Peter and his father discussed some hotel business, Caroline drew me aside. "Megan, dear, I hope you know how happy we are that Peter's found you. You bring out the best in him." Warmth bloomed in my chest. "He does the same for me," I admitted softly. The evening ended on a high note, with promises of future family dinners and even offers of business advice. As Peter drove me home, I felt a mix of relief and confusion. "See? I told you they'd love you," Peter said, grinning. I nodded, lost in thought. "They're not what I expected. Your dad seems so different from how my father described him." Peter's smile faltered slightly. "Yeah, about that. Meg, there's something I need to tell you." We pulled up to my house, but I made no move to get out. "What is it?" He took a deep breath. "My father, he's planning to retire soon, and he wants me to take over the hotel." My heart sank. "Oh, I see." "But that's not all," Peter continued, his voice urgent. "He wants to expand. He's talking about buying up smaller businesses in town, including—" "The hardware store," I finished, feeling like I'd been punched in the gut. Peter nodded miserably. "I tried to talk him out of it, but he's set on the idea. He thinks it's a smart business move." I stared at him, my mind reeling. The warm, humble couple I'd just met suddenly seemed like a facade. "And what do you think, Peter?" He hesitated, and in that moment, I saw our future hanging in the balance. His answer would determine everything: our relationship, my family's livelihood, the very fabric of our small town. "I think," he said slowly, "that we need to find a way to make this work for everyone. But Meg, I need you to trust me." As I looked into his pleading eyes, I realized that the real challenge was just beginning. Could I trust Peter to stand by me, or would his family's ambitions tear us apart? The days following Peter's revelation were a blur of sleepless nights and anxiety-filled mornings. I threw myself into work at the hardware store, desperately trying to find a way to make it thrive in the face of the Caldwell's expansion plans. One particularly exhausting afternoon, as I pored over inventory sheets, my phone buzzed. It was Caroline Caldwell. "Megan, dear," her warm voice came through the speaker. "Robert and I would love for you to join us for dinner tonight. There's something important we'd like to discuss." My stomach clenched. "Of course, I'd be happy to," I heard myself say, even as my mind raced with possibilities. As I pulled up to the Caldwell mansion that evening, Peter was waiting outside. His face was a mix of excitement and nervousness that did nothing to calm my frayed nerves. "Meg," he said, taking my hands. "Whatever happens in there, just know that I'm on your side, okay?" I nodded, not entirely sure I believed him. Inside, Robert and Caroline greeted us with warm smiles that seemed at odds with the tension I felt. We settled into the opulent dining room, the weight of unspoken words hanging heavy in the air. Finally, as dessert was served, Robert cleared his throat. "Megan, we've been impressed with how you've handled taking over your family's business. It's not an easy task." "Thank you," I said cautiously, waiting for the other shoe to drop. Caroline leaned forward, her eyes sparkling. "Which is why we have a proposition for you. We'd like to offer you a position as co-manager of our new hotel expansion." I blinked. Sure, I had misheard. "I'm sorry, what?" Robert nodded, looking pleased. "Instead of buying out smaller businesses, we've decided to focus on partnering with them. Your hardware store would be a key supplier for our new properties, and you'd have a seat at the table in managing the overall operation." My mind whirled. This was so far from what I'd expected that I didn't know how to respond. Peter squeezed my hand under the table. "It's a chance for us to work together, Meg, to build something amazing." I looked at the eager faces around me, feeling a mix of hope and trepidation. This is a lot to take in. What about my parents' store? I can't just abandon it. "Of course not," Caroline said quickly. "The store would remain yours, but with our backing and resources, you could expand it beyond your wildest dreams." As they laid out more details of their plan, I found myself getting caught up in the excitement. The possibilities seemed endless. New jobs for the town, a chance to modernize the store, a future with Peter that didn't involve choosing between him and my family. But as the evening wore on, a nagging doubt began to creep in. Was this too good to be true? What were the Caldwells really after? As Peter walked me to my car later that night, I couldn't shake my unease. "It all sounds wonderful," I said slowly, "but I can't help feeling like there's something I'm missing." Peter's face fell slightly. "Meg, I promise you, there's no hidden agenda here. My parents see your potential just like I do. They want to help, not take over." I wanted to believe him, but years of struggling as a single mom had taught me to be cautious. "I need some time to think about it," I said finally. "And to talk to my parents. This affects them too." Peter nodded, looking disappointed but understanding. As he leaned in to kiss me goodnight, I felt a flutter of excitement mixed with fear. This decision could change everything. My future, my family's legacy, my relationship with Peter. Driving home, my mind raced with possibilities and pitfalls. The Caldwells' offer was tempting, but was it worth the risk? Could I trust them and Peter with everything I held dear? As I pulled into my driveway, I saw my parents' car parked outside. They were waiting up, eager to hear about the dinner. In that moment, I realized the weight of the decision before me. It wasn't just about business or love. It was about loyalty, family, and the kind of person I wanted to be. Taking a deep breath, I stepped out of the car ready to face whatever came next. One thing was certain. After tonight, nothing would ever be the same. The weeks following the Caldwells' proposal flew by in a whirlwind of meetings, negotiations, and late-night planning sessions. I found myself swept up in the excitement of it all, my initial doubts fading as I saw the potential for growth and success. Peter and I grew closer than ever, our shared vision for the future, bringing us together in ways I never imagined. One night, as we pored over blueprints for the new hotel expansion, He surprised me with a small velvet box. "Meg," he said, his eyes shining, "I can't imagine doing any of this without you. Will you marry me?" My heart soared as I said yes, the diamond sparkling on my finger, a symbol of all the promises we'd made. But even as we dove into wedding plans, the reality of our new business venture began to set in. The hardware store was busier than ever, supplying materials for the hotel renovations, and I found myself stretched thin trying to manage it all. One particularly hectic morning, as I juggled phone calls and inventory orders, my father walked in, his face grave. "Megan, we need to talk," he said, gesturing to the back office. My stomach dropped. "What's wrong, Dad?" He sighed heavily as we sat down. "I've been looking over the numbers for the store, and something doesn't add up. We're moving more inventory than ever, but our profits are down, way down." I frowned, pulling up the spreadsheets on my computer. As we pored over the figures, a sickening realization dawned on me. The discounts we'd been offering the Caldwell project were far too steep. We were barely breaking even on most orders. "How could I have missed this?" I whispered, horror washing over me. Dad squeezed my shoulder. "You've had a lot on your plate, sweetheart, but we need to fix this and fast, or we'll be out of business within months." Just then my phone buzzed with a text from Peter. "Emergency at the hotel site. Need you here ASAP." I looked at my father, torn between my responsibilities to the store and my commitment to the new venture. "Go," he said softly. "But Megan, be careful. Make sure you're not losing yourself in all of this." At the construction site, I found Peter in heated discussion with his father and a group of contractors. The tension in the air was palpable. "Ah, Megan, there you are," Robert Caldwell boomed. "We need your expertise. These gentlemen seem to think we need to cut corners on some of the materials to stay on budget. I told them we have a deal with your store for top-quality supplies at the best prices." I felt the blood drain from my face. How could I tell them that those best prices were driving my family's business into the ground? Peter caught my eye, his brow furrowed in concern. "Meg, what do you think?" In that moment, standing amidst the half-built walls of our future, I felt the weight of my decisions crushing down on me. The store that had been my family's legacy for generations was on the brink of failure because of my poor management. The grand plans I'd made with Peter and his family suddenly seemed like a house of cards, ready to topple at the slightest breeze. "I need some time to look over the numbers," I managed to say, my voice shaking slightly. "Can we reconvene tomorrow?" Robert frowned, clearly displeased, but Peter quickly stepped in. "Of course, we all want to make the best decision here. Let's take a day to review everything." As the group dispersed, Peter pulled me aside. "What's going on, Meg? You look like you've seen a ghost." I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the conversation ahead. "Peter, we need to talk. About the store, about this project, about us." His face fell, sensing the gravity of my words. "Okay," he said quietly. "Let's go somewhere private." As we walked away from the bustling construction site, I knew I was at a crossroads. The choices I made in the next few hours would determine not just the fate of my family's business, but the course of my entire future. Could I find a way to save the store without jeopardizing my relationship with Peter and his family? Or was I about to lose everything I'd worked so hard to build? With each step, the weight of my engagement ring seemed to grow heavier, a reminder of all that was at stake. Whatever happened next, I knew one thing for certain: nothing would ever be the same again. The shrill ring of my phone jolted me awake at 3 a.m. Peter's name flashed on the screen, sending a chill down my spine. "Meg, it's Dad," Peter's voice cracked. "He's had a heart attack. We're at the hospital." The next few hours passed in a blur of fluorescent lights and antiseptic smells. By dawn, Robert Caldwell was stable but unconscious. The doctors spoke of a long recovery, and as I watched Caroline collapse into tears, I knew everything was about to change. Peter pulled me aside, his face haggard. "Meg, I need to step in at the hotel. Dad's been running everything, and with the new expansion—" I nodded, understanding the weight of responsibility suddenly thrust upon him. "Of course. What can I do to help?" Little did I know those words would come back to haunt me. Over the next few weeks, I watched Peter transform. The caring, supportive man I'd fallen in love with vanished, replaced by a stressed, short-tempered stranger. He threw himself into work, often staying at the hotel until the early hours of the morning. One evening, exhausted from juggling the hardware store and helping with the hotel, I arrived at Peter's office with dinner, hoping for a quiet moment together. Instead, I found him shouting at a group of employees, "I don't care if it's not in the budget. Make it happen, or find another job." The workers scurried out, leaving Peter and me alone. He turned, his eyes blazing. "What are you doing here?" I held up the takeout bag, suddenly feeling foolish. "I thought we could have dinner together. Maybe talk about the wedding plans." Peter scoffed. "Wedding plans? Meg, we're in the middle of a crisis here. The expansion is behind schedule, over budget, and you're worried about flower arrangements?" His words stung like a slap. "Peter, I'm trying to help, but I'm also trying to save my family's business. The discounts we're giving you—" "Oh, here we go again," he interrupted, rolling his eyes. "Meg, it's business. Sometimes you have to make sacrifices for the greater good." "The greater good?" I echoed, incredulous. "Peter, we're talking about my family's livelihood." He slammed his hand on the desk, making me jump. "And we're talking about my family's legacy. Do you have any idea how much pressure I'm under? My father built this empire, and now it's all on me." I took a step back, suddenly seeing Peter in a new light. "What happened to 'we're in this together'?" I asked quietly. His face softened for a moment, a flicker of the old Peter shining through. "Meg, I'm sorry, I'm drowning here." I reached out to him, but he turned away, his attention caught by a ringing phone. "I have to take this. We'll talk later, okay?" But later never seemed to come. Days turned into weeks, and Peter grew more distant, more demanding. The hotel staff walked on eggshells around him, and I found myself constantly running interference, trying to smooth over his harsh words and unreasonable demands. One afternoon, as I was reviewing invoices in the hotel office, I overheard Peter in a heated conversation with his mother. "We can't keep operating like this, Peter." Caroline's voice was strained. "Your father would never—" "Well, Dad's not here, is he?" Peter snapped. "And if we don't turn this around, there won't be a hotel for him to come back to." "And what about Megan?" Caroline asked softly. "Have you thought about what this is doing to her, to your relationship?" There was a long pause before Peter replied, his voice cold. "Megan will understand. This is business, Mom. Nothing personal." I felt my world crumble around me. The man I loved, the future I dreamed of, it was all slipping away, and I didn't know how to stop it. As I stood there, frozen in shock, my phone buzzed with a message from my father. "Emergency at the store. Need you here now." In that moment, torn between the crumbling remains of my personal life and the family business I'd sworn to protect, I realized I was facing the biggest crisis of my life. Everything I cared about was at stake, and I had no idea how to save it all. With trembling hands, I gathered my things and slipped out of the hotel, Peter's harsh words still ringing in my ears. As I drove towards an uncertain future, I wondered if there was anything left of my dreams to salvage, or if it was time to cut my losses and start anew. The hardware store was in chaos when I arrived. Dad stood amidst a sea of paperwork, his face ashen. "Megan, we're in trouble. Big trouble." As we pored over the books, the full extent of our crisis became clear. The steep discounts we'd given the Caldwell Hotel had pushed us to the brink of bankruptcy. We had less than a month before we'd have to close our doors for good. "I'm so sorry, Dad," I whispered, guilt crushing me. "This is all my fault." He squeezed my hand. "We'll figure it out, sweetheart. We always do." But as I drove back to the hotel, determination replaced my despair. I'd fix this mess, with or without Peter's help. The hotel lobby was a flurry of activity when I arrived. Sarah, the head of housekeeping, rushed up to me, her eyes wild. "Thank goodness you're here, Megan. Half the staff just quit, and we have a full house tonight." I took a deep breath, pushing my own problems aside. "Okay, let's get to work." For the next 12 hours, I was everywhere at once, checking in guests, making beds, soothing frayed nerves. By midnight, we'd managed to avert disaster, but I was exhausted. As I slumped against the front desk, Caroline appeared, concern etched on her face. "Megan, dear, you look terrible. Where's Peter?" I laughed bitterly. "Your guess is as good as mine. He hasn't answered his phone all day." Caroline's expression hardened. "This isn't like him. Something's wrong." Just then, my phone buzzed. An unknown number. "Hello? Is this Megan?" a woman's voice asked. "I'm calling from the Oasis Hotel. "There's a gentleman here who's had too much to drink. He says he's your fiancé." My heart sank. "I'll be right there." I found Peter slumped at the bar of our biggest competitor, barely conscious. As I half-carried him to my car, he mumbled, "I'm sorry, Meg, I've ruined everything." Back at our hotel, I helped him to bed, my mind racing. How had we come to this? The next morning I was back at the front desk when Peter stumbled down, looking worse for wear. "Meg, we need to talk." But before he could continue, a group of angry investors burst in, led by Robert Caldwell himself, looking frail but furious. "Where's my son?" Robert demanded. "What's he done to my hotel?" As accusations flew and tempers flared, I found myself stepping between Peter and the angry mob. "Everyone, please, let's discuss this calmly." For the next hour, I mediated a tense meeting, piecing together the extent of Peter's mismanagement. He'd made risky investments, alienated key partners, and nearly run the hotel into the ground. When the dust settled, Robert turned to me, his eyes shrewd. "Megan, you've shown remarkable leadership today. How would you like to take over as interim manager?" I blinked, stunned. "But what about Peter?" Robert's face hardened. "My son needs time to get his act together. The hotel needs someone competent at the helm." As the weight of the offer sank in, I realized this was my chance to save not just the hotel, but my family store as well. But could I do it? And at what cost to my relationship with Peter? I looked at Peter, hoping to see some sign of the man I'd fallen in love with, but his eyes were cold, resentful. "Go ahead, Meg, take it. You've always wanted to be in charge anyway." His words stung, but they also ignited a fire within me. "You know what? I will." Turning to Robert, I squared my shoulders. "I accept, on one condition. We renegotiate our contract with my family's hardware store. Fair prices that benefit both businesses." Robert nodded, impressed. "Done." As the room cleared out, I found myself alone with Peter. The air between us crackled with unspoken words and broken promises. "So this is it?" Peter said, his voice bitter. "You're taking everything from me?" I felt my heart breaking, but I stood my ground. "No, Peter, you did this to yourself." As he stormed out, I sank into a chair, the enormity of what lay ahead crashing down on me. I'd saved the hotel and my family's store, but at what cost? Could I really do this alone? Just then, my phone buzzed. A message from Dad. "Proud of you, kiddo. You've got this." Taking a deep breath, I stood up. It was time to get to work. The real test was just beginning. 6 months had passed since I took over as interim manager of the Caldwell Hotel. Every day had been a battle, but slowly, surely, we were turning things around. The staff rallied behind me, the guests were happy, and even Robert Caldwell had started to smile again. I hadn't heard from Peter in weeks. Part of me was relieved, while another part ached for closure. But I had no time for regrets. I had a hotel to run and a family business to save. It was a busy Friday afternoon when I saw him walk through the lobby doors. My heart stuttered. Peter looked good. Too good. Tanned, well-dressed, with a sparkle in his eye I hadn't seen in months, and on his arm was a young woman, her laughter tinkling across the marble floor. "Megan," Peter called out, his voice jovial, "just the person I wanted to see." I steeled myself, plastering on a professional smile. "Peter, welcome back. How can I help you?" He grinned, pulling the woman closer. "Megan, I'd like you to meet Sophia, my fiancée." The world tilted on its axis. "Fiancée?" I repeated, my voice sounding far away. Peter nodded, oblivious to my shock. "We met on my trip to the Bahamas. It was love at first sight. Anyway, we're here to plan our wedding. I want to host it here, at the hotel, for old time's sake." I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. "I see. And what does your father think about this?" Peter waved dismissively. "Oh, Dad will come around. Once he sees how happy I am, how successful I've become with my new business ventures, he'll understand why I needed to step away from the hotel." I nodded, had my mind racing. "Of course. Well, congratulations. If you'll excuse me, I need to check on something in the office. Sarah here will help you with your reservation." As I turned to leave, Peter caught my arm. "Oh, and Meg? I'll need those divorce papers signed ASAP, for the wedding, you know?" I pulled away, my voice ice cold. "I'll have my lawyer contact you." In my office, I allowed myself a moment to break down. Tears of anger, hurt, and frustration flowed freely. But as I looked at the framed photo on my desk, my daughter, my parents, and me at the grand reopening of our hardware store, I felt a steely resolve settle over me. Taking a deep breath, I made a call. "Robert, it's Megan. We need to talk. An hour later, I walked back into the lobby, my head held high. Peter and Sophia were at the bar, champagne flutes in hand. "Peter," I called out, my voice steady. "A word, please?" He sauntered over, cocky grin in place. "What's up, Meg? Everything set for the wedding?" I smiled, sweet as poison. "Not quite. You see, there's been a change in management you should know about." Peter's grin faltered. "What do you mean?" "Well, your father and the board were so impressed with my work these past months, they've offered me the position of permanent general manager, with a significant ownership stake." The color drained from Peter's face. But that's my position, my birthright." I shook my head. "Not anymore." "Oh, and about that wedding? I'm afraid we're fully booked for the next year. You understand, don't you? It's just business after all, nothing personal." As Peter sputtered and raged, I saw Sophia slip away, her eyes wide with realization. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. "You can't do this," Peter hissed. "I'll fight you. You'll what?" I interrupted. "Sue your own family's hotel? Go ahead. I'm sure the press will love that story." As security escorted a fuming Peter out, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. I'd faced my greatest challenge and come out stronger. The hotel was thriving, my family's store was saved, and I had finally found my own path. Later that evening, as I tucked my daughter into bed, she asked, "Mommy, are you happy?" I smiled, realizing the truth in my answer. "Yes, sweetheart, I really am." As I closed her bedroom door, my phone buzzed with a message from Caroline. "Dinner tomorrow? We have some exciting expansion plans to discuss." I grinned, ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. The storm had passed, and I had not only weathered it, but emerged victorious. The future was bright, and this time, I was in control. Standing at the window, looking out at the twinkling lights of the city, I raised a silent toast to myself. To new beginnings, hard-won victories, and the sweet taste of well-deserved success. The best revenge, after all, is living well, and I intended to do just that. The antique vase shattered at my feet, its delicate porcelain fragments scattering across the hardwood floor. I stood frozen, my hand still outstretched from where I'd knocked it off the shelf. The silence that followed was deafening. "Mom, what have you done?" Sophie's shrill voice pierced the air, her eyes wide with horror. I opened my mouth to explain, but no words came out. How could I tell them it was an accident when they were looking at me like I was a criminal? Ethan, my husband of 20 years, rushed into the room, his face contorted with anger as he surveyed the scene. "Amanda, that was my mother's prized possession. How could you?" I didn't mean to," I stammered, finally finding my voice. "I was just dusting and—" "Save it," Ethan snapped, cutting me off. "You've always been jealous of my mother's things. Admit it, you did this on purpose." I felt like I'd been slapped. "What? No, of course not. It was an accident, I swear." Sophie scoffed, rolling her eyes. "Right, Mom. Just like it was an accident when you lost Grandma's pearl necklace last month?" My heart sank. That had been a genuine mistake, but now it was being used against me. I looked from my daughter to my husband, searching for any sign of understanding in their eyes. There was none. "I think you should leave," Ethan said, his voice cold and firm. "Leave? But this is my home," I protested, feeling panic rise in my chest. "Not anymore," he replied. "I want you out by tonight. We can't trust you around valuable things anymore." I turned to Sophie, hoping for support, but she just crossed her arms and looked away. My own daughter siding with her father against me. The betrayal stung worse than any physical pain. "You can't be serious," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "Where am I supposed to go?" Ethan shrugged, already turning away. "That's not my problem. Just get out of my sight." As if on cue, the doorbell rang. Ethan went to answer it, leaving me alone with Sophie. "Sophie, honey, please," I pleaded. "You know I would never do something like this on purpose." She met my gaze, her eyes hard. "Do I? You've always resented Dad's success and Grandma's wealth. Maybe you finally snapped." Before I could respond, Ethan returned with a police officer in tow. My blood ran cold. "Officer, this is my wife," Ethan said, his voice dripping with false concern. "She's been acting erratically lately, destroying family heirlooms. We're worried about her mental state." The officer looked at me sympathetically. "Ma'am, is there someone we can call for you? Somewhere you can stay tonight?" I felt like I was in a nightmare. How had things spiraled so quickly? Just this morning, we'd been a normal family having breakfast together. Now, I was being treated like a criminal in my own home. I can call my sister, I managed to say, my voice shaking. As I fumbled for my phone, I caught sight of Ethan and Sophie exchanging a look. There was something in their eyes, something that made me wonder if this was more than just a misunderstanding. The officer escorted me to my room to pack a bag. As I threw clothes haphazardly into a suitcase, my mind raced. What was really going on here? Why were Ethan and Sophie so quick to turn on me? I paused, my hand on a framed photo of the three of us from happier times. Something wasn't right, and I was determined to find out what it was. They might think they've won, kicking me out like this, but they had no idea what I was capable of. As I walked out of the house I'd called home for 2 decades, I made a silent vow. I would uncover the truth, clear my name, and make them regret ever doubting me. This wasn't the end, it was just the beginning. I spent a restless night on Abby's couch, my mind racing with questions and doubts. The morning light had barely crept through the curtains when my phone buzzed. It was Sophie. "Mom, you need to come to Grandma's house, now." My heart leaped into my throat. "Is everything okay?" "Just come," she snapped before hanging up. I arrived at my mother-in-law's sprawling Victorian home within the hour, my stomach in knots. Ethan's car was already in the driveway. As I approached the front door, I heard raised voices inside. "I'm telling you, Mother, it was Amanda." Ethan's voice carried through the open window. "She's been eyeing your valuables for years." I froze, my hand on the doorknob. What was he doing? "But dear, Amanda's always been so kind," his mother Margaret replied. Her voice was frail, confused. "Are you sure?" "Of course I'm sure," Ethan insisted. "Why do you think she's not here now?" "She's probably pawning your things as we speak." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Anger surged through me as I burst through the door. "How dare you?" Ethan spun around, his face a mask of false concern. "Amanda, what are you doing here?" "Sophie called me," I said, glaring at him. "And I'm glad she did. What lies are you feeding your mother?" Margaret looked between us, her eyes clouded with confusion. "Ethan, you said Amanda stole from me?" "Because she did, Mother," Ethan said smoothly. "Remember the missing pearl necklace and now the vase?" "That's not true," I protested. "Margaret, you know me. I would never." "Oh, Amanda," Margaret interrupted, her voice trembling. "How could you, after all these years?" My heart shattered. I turned to Sophie, who stood silently in the corner. "Sophie, please, tell your grandmother the truth." But Sophie just looked away, avoiding my gaze. In that moment, I realized how deep Ethan's manipulation ran. He had turned not just my daughter against me, but his own mother, too. "I think you should leave," Ethan said, his voice dripping with false sympathy. "You're upsetting Mother." I stood my ground. "I'm not going anywhere until we sort this out. Margaret, please, try to remember. I've always respected your things. It's Ethan who—" "Enough!" Ethan shouted, his calm facade cracking. "Mother doesn't need this stress. Sophie, take Grandma upstairs." As Sophie led a bewildered Margaret away, I turned on Ethan. "What game are you playing?" His eyes narrowed. "Game? I'm protecting my family from a thief." "We both know that's not true," I hissed. "Why are you doing this? What are you hiding?" For a split second I saw fear flicker in Ethan's eyes, but it was quickly replaced by cold anger. "You're delusional, Amanda. Maybe you need professional help." "The only help I need is a good lawyer," I retorted. "You won't get away with this." Ethan laughed, a cruel sound that sent chills down my spine. "Get away with what? Telling the truth? Face it, Amanda. No one will believe you over me. I'm the successful businessman. You're just a housewife with a history of accidents around valuable antiques." His words hit me like a physical blow. I realized then how carefully he had orchestrated this, how long he must have been planning it. But why? As I turned to leave, I caught sight of a letter on Margaret's desk. The logo at the top made my blood run cold. It was from the bank that handled Ethan's business accounts. Suddenly, pieces started falling into place. The missing antiques, Ethan's increasingly lavish spending, his desperation to discredit me. Was he in financial trouble? I walked out of the house, my mind whirling. Ethan thought he had won, but he had no idea who he was dealing with. I might be down, but I was far from out. It was time to start digging, to uncover what Ethan was really hiding. As I drove away, I made a silent vow. I would expose Ethan's lies, clear my name, and reclaim my life. The game was on, and I intended to win. I sat at Abby's kitchen table, nursing a cup of coffee and mulling over the events of the past few days. My sister bustled around, preparing breakfast and shooting concerned glances my way. "Amanda, you need to eat something," she said, sliding a plate of toast in front of me. I shook my head. "I can't. I keep thinking about Sophie. How could she turn on me like this?" Abby sighed, taking the seat across from me. "Honey, you've been blind to this for years. Ethan's been poisoning Sophie against you since she was little." "What are you talking about?" I asked, my defenses rising. "Think about it," Abby pressed. "Who always gave in to her every whim? Who never made her face consequences? Ethan's turned that girl into a spoiled princess, and you've let it happen." Her words stung, but deep down I knew she was right. I thought back to all the times Ethan had undermined my parenting, always playing the fun dad while I was left to be the disciplinarian. As if on cue, my phone buzzed with a text from Sophie. "Dad's taking me to Paris for the weekend. Thought you should know." I showed the message to Abby, my hands shaking. "See? He's buying her loyalty with trips and gifts." Abby's eyes narrowed. "Amanda, don't you think it's odd that Ethan's splurging on a Paris trip right after accusing you of theft? Where's this money coming from?" Before I could respond, there was a knock at the door. Abby went to answer it, and I heard hushed voices in the hallway. A moment later, she returned with a stern-faced woman in a suit. "Mrs. Thompson?" the woman asked. "I'm Linda Carson from Child Protective Services. We need to talk about your daughter, Sophie." My heart plummeted. "What? Why?" Linda sat down, her expression grave. "We've received reports of potential emotional abuse and neglect. Given the recent accusations against you, we need to assess Sophie's living situation." I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. "This is ridiculous. I've never abused Sophie. Ethan's the one who—" "Mrs. Thompson," Linda interrupted, "please understand that we're just doing our job. We'll be conducting interviews with Sophie, your husband, and other family members." As Linda continued explaining the process, my mind raced. This had Ethan written all over it. He was using the system against me, painting me as an unfit mother. "Can I at least talk to Sophie?" I asked, my voice cracking. Linda shook her head. "I'm afraid that's not possible right now. We need to conduct our initial interviews without any potential influence." After Linda left, I collapsed into Abby's arms, sobbing. "He's taking everything from me, Abby. My home, my daughter, my reputation." Abby held me tight, her voice fierce. "Listen to me, Amanda. Ethan might think he's won, but he's underestimated you. It's time to fight back." I pulled away, wiping my eyes. "How? He holds all the cards." "Not all of them," Abby said, a glint in her eye. "Remember that letter you saw at Margaret's house? From the bank? I think it's time we did some digging into Ethan's finances." A spark of hope ignited in my chest. "You're right. If Ethan's hiding something, that's where we'll find it." As we started planning our next move, my phone buzzed again. Another text from Sophie. "Mom, I'm sorry. I don't know what to believe anymore." I stared at the message, a mix of emotions swirling inside me. Maybe all wasn't lost with Sophie after all. But I knew one thing for certain. I had to act fast. Ethan was playing a dangerous game, and it was time I learned the rules. I looked up at Abby, a new determination in my eyes. "Let's do this. It's time to uncover what Ethan's really hiding and save our family before it's too late." The familiar creak of the porch steps brought a rush of memories as I approached my childhood home. It had been years since I'd last visited, but desperate times called for desperate measures. My mother rose, opened the door before I could knock, her weathered face a mix of concern and love. "Amanda, sweetheart," she said, pulling me into a tight embrace. "Abby called. I've been worried sick." I melted into her arms, feeling like a little girl again. "Oh, Mom, everything's falling apart." She ushered me inside, the scent of freshly baked cookies enveloping me like a warm blanket. As we sat at the kitchen table, I poured out the whole sordid story. Ethan's accusations, Sophie's betrayal, the CPS investigation. Mom listened intently, her brow furrowing with each new revelation. "That no-good son-in-law of mine," she muttered when I finished. "I always knew he was trouble." I sighed, cradling a mug of tea in my hands. "I should have seen it coming. How could I have been so blind?" Mom reached across the table, clasping my hand. "Now you listen here, Amanda. You are not to blame for Ethan's deceit, but it's high time you stood up for yourself." "But how?" I asked, feeling utterly defeated. "He's taken everything from me, my home, my daughter, my reputation." A steely glint appeared in Mom's eyes. "He hasn't taken your spirit, has he? You're a fighter, Amanda. Always have been. Remember when you were 10 and those bullies stole your bike?" I couldn't help but smile at the memory. I tracked them down and demanded it back. "Exactly," Mom nodded. "You didn't give up then, and you're not giving up now. Ethan might think he's won, but he doesn't know who he's dealing with." As we talked, a plan began to form. Mom suggested I reach out to her old friend, a retired detective named Frank, who might be able to help investigate Ethan's finances. She also reminded me of the importance of documenting everything. Every interaction, every accusation, every suspicious move Ethan made. "Knowledge is power, sweetheart," she said. "The more you know, the stronger your position." Just then my phone buzzed. It was a text from Sophie. "Mom, I'm scared. Dad's acting weird. Can we talk?" My heart raced. This could be my chance to reconnect with my daughter, to help her see the truth. But what if it was a trap? "What should I do, Mom?" I asked, showing her the message. She squeezed my hand. "Trust your instincts, Amanda. You know your daughter. If she's reaching out, there must be a reason." Taking a deep breath, I typed out a reply. "Of course, sweetie. Name the time and place." As I hit send, a wave of determination washed over me. Mom was right. I was a fighter. And it was time to show Ethan exactly what I was made of. "I need to go back," I said, standing up. "I can't hide out here while Ethan destroys everything we've built." Mom nodded, a proud smile on her face. "That's my girl. But remember, you're not alone in this fight. Your family has your back." As I packed my bags, Mom's words of wisdom echoed in my mind. "Adversity doesn't build character, Amanda. It reveals it. And you, my dear, have character in spades." Hugging her goodbye, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. Ethan might have landed the first punch, but I was far from knocked out. It was time to gather evidence, reconnect with Sophie, and expose Ethan's lies. Driving away from my childhood home, I made a solemn vow. I would reclaim my life, clear my name, and show Sophie the truth about her father. The road ahead would be tough, but I was tougher. Ethan had no idea what was coming his way. The familiar jingle of the bell above the door of Ethan's Antiques sent a chill down my spine. I'd entered this shop countless times before, but never like this. A woman on a mission, determined to uncover the truth. "Amanda?" Marge, Ethan's longtime assistant, looked up from the counter, surprise etched on her face. "I thought you were away." I forced a smile. "Just stopping by to pick up some personal items, Marge. Is Ethan around?" She shook her head. "He's at an auction in Boston. Won't be back till tomorrow." "Perfect." I made my way to the back office, my heart pounding. I had maybe an hour before Marge's curiosity got the better of her. Sitting at Ethan's desk, I booted up his computer. Thank God he'd never changed his password. Our wedding anniversary of all things. As I dug through the financial records, a pattern emerged. Large sums of money moving in and out of accounts I'd never seen before. Sales records for items I knew we'd never had in stock. And then I saw it. A transaction for an antique vase, matching the description of his mother's prized possession, sold to a private collector for an astronomical sum. My hands shook as I scribbled down account numbers and dates. This was it. Proof of Ethan's deception. But as I delved deeper, I realized it was just the tip of the iceberg. The business was hemorrhaging money, and Ethan was desperately trying to cover it up. Suddenly, the office door swung open. I looked up, expecting to see Marge, but instead found myself face to face with Sophie. "Mom?" Her eyes widened in shock. "What are you doing here?" I scrambled to close the files on the computer. "Sophie, I can explain." "Are you stealing from Dad?" she accused, her voice rising. "Is that why you're sneaking around?" "No, sweetie. It's not what you think," I pleaded, reaching for her. "I'm trying to uncover the truth. Your father, he's been—" "Stop it!" Sophie shouted, backing away. "I don't want to hear your lies. I'm calling Dad." As she pulled out her phone, panic surged through me. If Ethan found out I'd been here, all my efforts would be for nothing. In a split-second decision, I grabbed Sophie's arm. "Listen to me," I said urgently. "Your father is not who you think he is. He's been lying to all of us, including your grandmother. I can prove it, but I need you to trust me." Sophie hesitated, her finger hovering over Ethan's number. "Why should I believe you?" "Because I'm your mother," I said softly. "And despite everything that's happened, I love you more than anything in this world. I would never lie to you, Sophie. Not about this." For a moment we stood in tense silence. Then, slowly, Sophie lowered her phone. "You have 5 minutes to explain." Relief washed over me. I quickly showed her the financial records, explaining the discrepancies and the suspicious transactions. As understanding dawned on her face, I saw a flicker of doubt in her eyes. "But why would Dad do this?" she asked, her voice small. "I don't know, sweetheart," I admitted, "but I intend to find out. Will you help me?" Sophie bit her lip, conflict clear on her face. Then, with a determined nod, she said, "What do you need me to do?" In that moment, I felt a surge of hope. My daughter was back on my side. But I knew we weren't out of the woods yet. Ethan would return soon, and when he did, all hell would break loose. As we hurriedly copied files and gathered evidence, I steeled myself for the confrontation to come. The stakes had never been higher. Not just for me, but for Sophie and the entire family. One thing was certain. There was no turning back now. The truth would come out, no matter the cost. My heart raced as I approached the sprawling mansion. This was it. The home of Ethan's wealthiest client, Richard Holloway. Sophie had overheard Ethan mentioning a special delivery here, and my gut told me this was where we'd find the missing antique. "Are you sure about this, Mom?" Sophie whispered beside me, her face pale with anxiety. I squeezed her hand. "We have to know the truth, sweetheart, no matter what." Taking a deep breath, I rang the doorbell. A maid answered, eyeing us suspiciously. "We're here to see Mr. Holloway," I said, mustering all the confidence I could. "It's about an antique he recently acquired." Moments later, we were ushered into an opulent study. Richard Holloway, a distinguished man in his 60s, greeted us warmly. "Ah, you must be from Ethan's Antiques," he said, smiling. I was expecting someone to check on the vase. Magnificent piece, isn't it? My breath caught in my throat as I spotted it. Margaret's prized antique vase, sitting proudly on a pedestal by the window. "Actually, Mr. Holloway," I began, my voice shaking slightly, "I'm Amanda Thompson, Ethan's wife. And this vase, it belongs to my mother-in-law." Richard's smile faltered. "I'm afraid there must be some mistake. I purchased this vase legitimately from your husband's shop." "No mistake," Sophie interjected, her voice stronger than I expected. "That's my grandmother's vase. Dad had no right to sell it." As Richard's confusion grew, I quickly explained the situation. Ethan's accusations, the family turmoil, and our suspicions about the business's finances. "Good Lord," Richard muttered, sinking into his chair. "I had no idea. I've been doing business with Ethan for years. This is troubling." Just then, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Abby. "Ethan's on his way to Holloway's. He knows you're there." Panic surged through me. "Mr. Holloway, I hate to ask this, but could you please not mention our visit to my husband? We need time to gather more evidence." Richard nodded gravely. "Of course, this is a serious matter. I'll cooperate fully with any investigation." As we hurried out, I saw Ethan's car turning into the driveway. "Quick, Sophie," I hissed, pulling her behind a hedge. We watched as Ethan strode up to the house, his face a mask of barely contained fury. Through the open study window, we could hear snippets of his conversation with Richard. "Misunderstanding, my wife is unstable, custody battle." My blood boiled at Ethan's lies, but Sophie's grip on my arm tightened. "Not yet, Mom," she whispered. "We need more proof." She was right, of course, but hearing Ethan spin his web of deceit made me realize just how far he was willing to go to protect himself. As we snuck away, I knew we were racing against time. Ethan would soon realize we'd been there, and he'd stop at nothing to discredit us. "What now?" Sophie asked as we drove away, her voice trembling. I gripped the steering wheel, my mind racing. "We need to move fast. We'll go to the police, show them the financial records, tell them about the vase." Suddenly, my phone rang. It was Margaret, Ethan's mother. "Amanda?" Her frail voice quavered. "Ethan says you've stolen from me. He wants to put me in a home. Please, what's going on?" My heart sank. Ethan was making his move, isolating Margaret to keep her quiet. "Don't worry," I assured her, though fear gnawed at my insides. "I'm coming to get you. Everything will be all right." As I ended the call, I realized the true extent of Ethan's manipulation. He wasn't just trying to frame me. He was systematically destroying every relationship I had, every support system I could turn to. I looked at Sophie, saw the fear and determination in her eyes, and made a decision. "Change of plans," I said, making a sharp U-turn. "We're getting your grandmother. It's time to end this, once and for all." As we raced towards Margaret's house, I knew we were hurtling towards a confrontation that would change everything. But I was done being a victim. It was time to fight back, to reclaim my life and protect my family. Whatever Ethan had planned, he was about to learn that he'd underestimated me for the last time. We burst through the door of Margaret's house, finding her in the living room, surrounded by half-packed boxes. Her eyes, wide with confusion and fear, met mine. "Amanda? Sophie? What's happening?" she asked, her voice trembling. "We're getting you out of here, Margaret," I said, rushing to her side. "Ethan's been lying to all of us." Sophie started gathering Margaret's essentials while I quickly explained the situation. Margaret's face crumpled as the truth sank in. "My own son, how could he?" she whispered. Just then, we heard the screech of tires outside. Ethan had arrived. "Quick, out the back," I urged, helping Margaret to her feet. We were halfway across the backyard when Ethan's voice boomed behind us. "Stop right there!" We turned to face him, his face contorted with rage. "What do you think you're doing, Amanda? Kidnapping my mother now?" "Enough, Ethan," I shouted, my fear transforming into anger. "We know everything. The embezzlement, selling your mother's antiques, framing me. It's over." Ethan's eyes darted between us, calculating his next move. "You have no proof," he sneered. "Who do you think they'll believe? The respected businessman or the unstable wife?" "They'll believe the truth," Sophie interjected, stepping forward. "I've seen the evidence, Dad. How could you do this to us, to Grandma?" For a moment, Ethan's mask slipped, revealing a flicker of shame, but it quickly hardened into defiance. "You don't understand. The business was failing. I had to do something." "By stealing from your own mother?" Margaret's voice was quiet but firm. "By destroying your family?" Ethan's composure cracked. "I never meant for it to go this far. The first sale was just to cover a small debt, but then it spiraled. I couldn't stop." As Ethan's confession poured out, I felt a mix of vindication and sorrow. This man I'd loved, the father of my child, had betrayed us all so completely. "It's not too late to make this right, Ethan," I said, softening my tone. "Turn yourself in. We can work through this as a family." For a moment, hope flickered in his eyes. Then, without warning, he lunged forward, grabbing Margaret's arm. "No, I won't let you ruin everything I've built." "Let her go, Ethan!" I screamed, fear gripping my heart as Margaret stumbled. Sophie rushed to her grandmother's aid, while I faced off against my husband. In his eyes, I saw desperation, the cornered look of a man with nothing left to lose. "Think about what you're doing," I pleaded, inching closer. "This isn't you, Ethan. Remember the man I fell in love with, the father Sophie adores. He's still in there somewhere." Ethan's grip on Margaret loosened slightly. I don't know how to fix this," he admitted, his voice breaking. Just then, police sirens wailed in the distance. Someone, probably a neighbor, had called them. "It's over, Dad," Sophie said gently, supporting Margaret. "Please don't make this worse." As the police cars pulled up, Ethan's shoulders sagged in defeat. He released Margaret and slumped to the ground, burying his face in his hands. While the officers took Ethan into custody, I held Margaret and Sophie close. We'd won, but the victory felt hollow. Our family was irrevocably changed. As we watched Ethan being driven away, Sophie turned to me, tears in her eyes. "What happens now, Mom?" I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of uncertainty pressing down on us. "I don't know, sweetheart, but we'll face it together, one day at a time." The road ahead would be challenging, filled with legal battles, emotional healing, and rebuilding trust. But as I stood there with my daughter and mother-in-law, I felt a glimmer of hope. We'd survived the worst of the storm. Now it was time to pick up the pieces and start anew. 6 months after Ethan's arrest, I stood in front of the mirror, adjusting my blazer. Today was the final day of his trial, and I was determined to face it with the strength I'd discovered within myself. "Mom?" Sophie's voice called from downstairs. "Are you ready?" I took a deep breath. "Coming, sweetie." As we drove to the courthouse, I couldn't help but reflect on how much had changed. The initial shock of Ethan's betrayal had given way to a steely resolve. Sophie, once Daddy's little girl, had matured beyond her years, standing by my side through it all. The courtroom was packed as we entered. I caught sight of Margaret, frail but determined, sitting with my sister Abby. As the judge called the court to order, I felt Sophie's hand slip into mine. Ethan's eyes met mine as he was led in. Gone was the arrogant businessman I'd known. In his place sat a broken man, the weight of his actions evident in the slump of his shoulders. As the verdict was read, guilty on all counts, a collective sigh seemed to ripple through the room. It was over. Finally, truly over. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed us. "Mrs. Thompson, how do you feel about the verdict?" one shouted. I paused, considering my words carefully. Today isn't about winning or losing. It's about truth and accountability. My family has been through hell, but we're survivors. We'll heal, and we'll move forward. Later that evening, as Sophie, Margaret, Abby, and I sat around the dinner table in our new home, a sense of peace settled over me. It wasn't perfect. Margaret still had moments of confusion, and Sophie was in therapy to work through her trust issues. But we were together, supporting each other. "I have something for you," Margaret said, her eyes twinkling as she handed me a small box. Inside was a delicate silver locket. "It's beautiful," I gasped. "Open it," she urged. I did, and found a photograph inside. Me, Sophie, and Margaret, taken just last week. On the other side was engraved, "Family is love, not blood." Tears welled in my eyes as I looked at these three incredible women. My daughter, who'd shown such courage in facing the truth about her father. My sister, who'd stood by me when I had nothing. And Margaret, who'd chosen to embrace me as a daughter, despite everything. "I know it's been a hard road," Margaret said, her voice quavering slightly. "But I want you to know, Amanda, that you've shown us all what true strength looks like. You didn't just survive, you helped us all find a way forward." Sophie nodded, squeezing my hand. "Mom, I'm so sorry for doubting you. You've taught me what real integrity means." "Oh, sweetie," I pulled her close. "We've all learned so much, and we'll keep learning together." As the evening wore on, filled with laughter and shared memories, I felt a profound sense of gratitude. The path ahead wasn't clear. We still had financial challenges to face and emotional scars to heal, but I knew we'd face it as a family. Later, as I stood on the back porch, gazing at the stars, Abby joined me. "Penny for your thoughts, sis," I smiled, fingering the locket around my neck. "I was just thinking, for the first time in a long time, I'm excited about the future. It's like I can breathe again." Abby nudged my shoulder. "You know, when this all started, I was so worried about you. But watching you stand up for yourself, fight for the truth, I've never been prouder to call you my sister." As we hugged, I realized that this journey, painful as it had been, had given me something precious, a deeper understanding of my own strength and the unbreakable bonds of true family. The road ahead would have its challenges, but I was ready to face them. With Sophie, Margaret, and Abby by my side, I knew that whatever life threw our way, we'd face it together, stronger, wiser, and filled with love. As I closed the porch door and rejoined my family inside, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. This wasn't the end of our story. It was just the beginning of a new chapter, and I couldn't wait to see what the future held for us all.